Yeah, they were applauding. They thought it was fantastic. So I found my audience. It's teenagers. They get it. Yeah, I told them the folktale about the half girl and then how it tied into the theological, the creed, and they loved it. They thought it was fantastic. Liturgy, yeah. So I just got to. I guess what I'm saying is I think I'm going to transition over to youth ministry.
Well, with the death of Marvel and DC, I mean, now they have an imagination again.
They do.
Or they're.
Do you see they spent $700 million on Doomsday? Like that's the estimated budget now. $700 million after marketing.
Because the supposedly Odyssey is the biggest so far then, and that's only 250 million.
Yeah, that's nothing.
And
well,
so
plus marketing, so you double it, so it's $500 million. But I think
I know.
I think
they're
it's going to
spending more than $500,000 on.
I really do. A lot of people are not
Odyssey?
high on it. Yeah. Well, it's the every other thing about Nolan. Like every other Nolan movies doesn't pan out.
Well, I don't know that one. Is this a theory?
Yeah, it's actually a statistical fact. Every other movie he makes doesn't succeed. So he made Oppenheimer, success. So then the next movie will be a failure because Tenet was a failure.
But before that was Tenet.
Failed.
Right, okay. Yeah.
Which I liked. I own it on Blu-ray. I like it. It's just a heist movie. He makes heist movies with timey-wimey.
It's better the third time.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But I'm like, it's Nolan. You know what? It's just a heist. Like Inception's just a heist movie with a bunch of Doctor Who physics.
Just have boats and people dying and a Trojan horse.
It's fantastic.
And Matt Damon.
Right. Now people are just mad about the historical inaccuracy of a fairy tale.
Oh, I know, the armor. The armor.
Yeah.
Well, I showed the children last night. I'm like, because I showed them the trailer, and then they're like, "What is this?" I'm like, "It's Odyssey. I haven't read the Odyssey." So I go pull it off the shelf because of course we have it. And I'm like, "See, it's a big poem," and they're like, "They're going to do that in a 2.5-hour movie?" I'm like, "Right, exactly."
Kind of, sorta.
Yeah.
No.
Just the wave caps.
Just the wave caps, exactly. We're going to be on a boat for a bit.
So you want to hit the bump music so we can...
Should I do the begin show? Oh, no, I'm not going to do the bump music because he just jumped out. He'll come back, and then we'll do it.
Jeepers.
I don't know. You did it.
I touched my mouse pad and everything went
man.
crazy. I'm just a monkey pushing buttons here. I don't know what's happening.
That's exactly right.
There we go. Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Major Noir, Lacherta. This is the Man Books Podcast, a proud member of the 1517 Podcast Network. Head over to 1517.org for all of your gospel goodness, resources, Reese's Pieces, ET movies, Elliot, and all the good things. Today on the show, we have a very special guest, the most Reverend Druid Sam Schuldheisz, who is author of the upcoming book. Is that coming out in June, Sam? Maybe, possibly?
Yeah.
Kind of started this summer. Pre-order now, or storm the barricades, burn down the Bastille, and demand your copy of the book ahead of time. It is called, what is it called?
Luther and the Lion.
Okay, good. Luther and the Lion.
Yeah, and I think the subtitle is...
I don't think it's...
Narnian Catechism?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Is it listed?
It's listed for pre-order yet, is it?
Probably not. It's a little bit early.
I found it on Amazon, but I haven't looked myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we'll try to find a link and share it.
But since we've been all about the Inklings and
I'm
such...
Christopher Gillespie, by the way.
Oh, yeah, that guy.
If you didn't know who I was. You got to follow
the Curly of this
here.
Three Stooges. I think Curly was the last guy to die, so that's a good position to be in.
No, I'll just be Shep.
Shep Howard.
Just put me in the background.
Who wasn't actually one of the brothers.
I'll push all the buttons.
There we go. You do.
Oh, that's too bad. So sad.
Yeah, you know.
Okay.
That YouTube, one of those YouTube channels.
When we have
it's
three,
always like the
apparently,
tragic end of
all sorts of the show.
The tragic end of this show. It ended a long time ago, like episode 12. It was over. Everything after that's just.
Did it ever begin?
People have forgotten we're even broadcasting. They don't even know.
We played the music now, so at least we know it's kind of the start of the show.
That's right. That's right. We are the IT crowd. So on the show then. Oh yeah, and go by Being Family by Scott Keith. We don't. Do we have a commercial for that, or do we need a commercial for that, or was that enough of a commercial?
We did. We didn't play it this time.
Good.
Yeah, we didn't play it this time.
There, I just did it. Inshallah, mashallah, wallah. I just did it. Future, past, present, and
good for you.
And an oath. Yeah, that's what happens when you spend your time reading 13th and 14th century Persian poetry, you start to learn Farsi. So today on the show, then we're going to talk about all things Narnia and Catechism and goodness. So as usual, who knows where this is going? We don't know where it's going. Let's the Holy Spirit take control. He knows what's best. So praise be to God. So where do you want to start, Sam? Should we start with why did you get asked to write this, or was this something that?
Yeah. Scott Keith asked. This was a couple years ago now. I think it was shortly after the 2023 Here We Still Stand conference, the one on C.S. Lewis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Hey, got an idea for you. Remember how Rod Rosenblatt taught at Concordia Irvine for a long time, and he would often in our classes say, 'Oh, there was this time when I taught the small catechism class in a little church in La Jolla, California, using Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe.' And that was he said, I had the Bible, the catechism, and Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. And we went through the catechism with the story." He said, "Do you remember that?" I said, "Yeah." He said, he told that story multiple times, in just about every class that he taught, because that's how Rod does things. And Scott said, "Do you want to write that book?" And yeah, definitely. That was fun. I was like,
Yeah.
Absolutely. So that kind of started, that kind of kickstarted things. And then I had talked to Rod a few times about, "Hey, do you have any notes or anything left?" No, that was before computers, and I think I lost all my notes and things. And so I did send him a few kind of questions back and forth here and there, just kind of real general stuff about, hey, what did you do? Or, what's the importance of storytelling, that kind of stuff. So one of the cool things is a kind of a shortened version of that little, it was more like an email interview. That actually is going to end up in the back of the book, which is kind of cool.
Nice.
But yeah, that left me with where to go on my own. A lot of this stuff is obvious as far as the catechism goes with Narnia. Second article, the Creed, Aslan, and the whole passion scene and everything he does there. But other parts were a little less obvious. So yeah, I just started plotting out where things would go and what the chief parts of the catechism were, and trying to match them up. Just little jotted notes of, all right, this might fit this commandment, this might fit this part of the creed, or here's some baptismal imagery kinds of things. And tried to stick mostly with Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Okay.
Occasionally we'll have, like at the end of some of the sections, there'll be a little bit of a, I think we kind of called it like a separate segment, further up and further in.
Yeah.
So, looking, kind of diving off into some of the other 6 books from the Narnia series, just because some of them have really good, like, baptismal imagery, like
Right.
Eustace and the dragon, and the Isle in Dawn Treader there. So, that's kind of how it got started, and took a little bit to do editing. And
I mean, Rod actually used that picture, right? I remember Rod using the Eustace picture. I don't know if it was in an apologetics lecture or something like that.
Yeah. It's fantastic. It's one of the best ones in the Narnia series. Like that's got to be in the book. It's got to be in there somewhere. So
Well, it's interesting too, because I was just actually using that image the other day, and I was at the youth conference. I was talking with some pastors, and I said Lewis got that from the old myth of the lindworm. And in the story of the lindworm, it's about 2 brothers that are born at the same time, and one brother is thrown out the window because he's a serpent, and the other brother, the younger brother, is kept because he's born as a boy, and there's a whole mythology behind it. But Malcolm Geit, who's got a new book out on Gawain, and is it Galahad? Gawain. Yes.
Yeah, Galahad.
Galahad. And the Grail. And he was talking about that too, and this pertains to Lewis and then the Catechism. And so I think the value of it, because I got to play test your book in my confirmation class a couple months ago with my confirmands. And one of the things that Guy points out then is that when early Christians encountered pagans, they encountered these stories. And because Christians had a sacramental imagination, they could see these myths and these legends, like the lindworm, and say, oh, well, that's an image of baptism. In the original story, it's ash, milk, and a metal brush in the hands of a virgin that takes off the snake scales and reveals the man underneath. Whereas with Eustace, it's a little gentler, but still just as painful in the telling of it.
Yeah.
And I wonder then, in the present tense, because this is Geit's point too. He was talking in an interview recently about how, for him, these books, in Gawain, Galahad, Parsifal, but then also Narnia, Lord of the Rings, because Lewis and Tolkien are drawing on that chivalric tradition, Those stories and those authors, they provide a positive model of masculinity and a positive model of Christian manhood versus the Andrew Tates of the world and what commonly is called toxic masculinity, which is mistreating women, a kind of nihilistic, fatalistic view towards the world and culture, and a kind of me too, do it yourself kind of attitude. And so I'm wondering too on that, when you teach this to your children, both in church and outside of church, are those touch points, do you think, apologetically, that you can use the catechism via Lewis, via Narnia to say, here's a broader view, not just of what we believe as Christians, but broadly when you're encountering other people outside the church, this is like a bridge for apologetics?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's that famous quote from Lewis, the kids are, no, it's Chesterton, right? Children are more than likely to meet dragons and things.
Yeah,
Right?
it's Chesterton. Yeah.
Yeah, so we might as well give them something, to let them know that dragons can be defeated and slain.
Right.
And Lewis does a similar thing about, that boys need heroes, right? And young women need good, strong lead role. They need the Lucys, right, of the world.
Right.
And the, you know, um, ah, forgetting her name now. I was just reading Lord of the Rings, the Shield Maiden of Rohan, right? They need her.
Eowyn. Yeah.
Eowyn, thank you.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. They need those kinds of women to look to and say, all right,
100%.
this is a strong woman. This is a strong man. This is,
Yeah.
but different in the than a fallen world sense of what that means.
I never put together, my children have this, but Jocko Willink wrote a book for The Way of the Warrior Kid about a little boy who has to fight a dragon who's attacking their village and how he's afraid to fight it. And I just realized, he's trying to the point then. It's interesting watching people try to interpret these old myths and legends and folktales, but not take into consideration the thing that makes Lewis's stories great and make Tolkien and Chesterton's stories great is they're going up. They're always looking up.
Yeah.
Whereas Jocko, God bless him, but it's all horizontal. It's all flat.
I noticed that there was an interview. This was back when the Lord of the Rings movies came out, and it was an interview with Peter Jackson, and it was really good. I mean, he knew his stuff, right? He did a decent job overall for what it was, but it just in the course of the interview, you never got the impression like the Christian faith and the again that further up and further in viewpoint of the whole thing, and the author himself wasn't even on his radar. It seemed from the couple interviews I saw, and maybe he's done a better job learning that somewhere else, hopefully. But that's you miss that, and then boy, do you miss. Obviously, you miss the big obvious Christian stuff, but you also miss the connection of here's why they have heroes,
Right.
Both men and women, and elves and dwarves, other things because of who they are.
Well, I think for us too, for my family, my children now we're really into Silmarillion. And we got there obviously through these other stories, but now they're going further down and in, so to speak, of we want to learn the origins of things. And like at the youth conference I just spoke at, I talked about Tolkien's image of God, Iluvatar singing to the angels singing it back to him, and then him creating bodies out of the music. And how when I first read that, I thought, well, this is fantastic, but just beautiful, and I love it. And then when I was reading Tolkien's letters, where he actually exegetes the biblical text where he got that from, and he's saying, I didn't invent this. This isn't pagan. This is actually Job 38. This is Revelation 17. This is the music of creation. And you're like, the expansion of the theological imagination, then the further up and in is, I think, the expansion of the Christian imagination. So then when a person like Jackson or others, you see this, right? In the early 2000s, you see the Lord of the Rings, you see Jackson on Charlie Rose, for example, saying, we want to be faithful to the author. It's the author's vision. It's not ours to play with. But now we're on the other side of that 20 plus years later, where the same people are saying, well, we want to tell our story for modern audiences. And it seems that, the rooting is how you don't become a slave to temporary fads or emotions or ideologies is it's the upward focus rather than the downward focus, to say it's fine to go back and read the Silmarillion or Leaf and Nigel or The Discarded Image by Lewis or The Man Who Was Thursday by Chesterton, but they're still always looking up and you're looking down. And if you keep looking down, you're missing everything. That's when you get blackpilled, really, right?
Yeah, Lewis had this great idea too that when you go into a fairy tale, you go into a good myth,
Hmm.
and you come out seeing reality better, right? So that
Hmm.
you go in, you see magic trees, right? You see talking trees, you see the Ents,
Right.
and then you walk into the forest, the woods around you, even trees in your own backyard, and then
Yeah.
those come more alive. And
Hmm.
yeah, you just don't get that perspective if all it is just okay, yeah, it's a good
Hmm.
story. Oh yeah, it is that, but
Hmm.
it goes deeper, both down, but it has roots, but it also right it has limbs that ascend.
Do you, because you're in the Pacific Northwest, I'm in South Central Minnesota, so geographically a little bit different topography too. But
Yeah.
we just had a big thunderstorm roll through before we hit record, and
Mm.
I called the whole family out because we were smelling. This is the first big thunderstorm of the year
Oh,
here,
yeah, yeah.
and all the kids just immediately. It smells green. It smells like spring. It smells like life is coming up out of the underworld,
Yeah.
and they have that mythical imagination. But where you're at, even because my wife's from Oregon, and we would go to the coast and go up in the mountains, and I lived
Oh,
there,
yeah.
and there's a different kind of enchantment in the Pacific Northwest because you can kind of just walk into the woods and be surrounded
Yeah.
by green
Yeah.
and the smell of green and that life, that other life
We
that says, yeah.
we didn't actually say where Sam is from
That's okay.
Well, I didn't know if you wanted
because
me
you didn't
to
do any
Google
bio.
map him and pin him for everybody that's listening. If you don't
No,
like
I
what
linked to
Pastor
his bio in
Schuldheisz
the
has
show
to
notes.
say,
It's fine.
that's right. I live in a hole in the ground, not a.
Washington State, right?
Yeah, yeah, Washington State. Yeah, yeah, we're in Milton, which is kind of east of Tacoma, about depending on traffic and time, 15, 20 minutes, something like
Okay,
that.
nice.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
But there's this sense in the Pacific Northwest, kind of like in Appalachia, of there's still a little bit left of this is older than you, this is bigger
hmm,
than you,
yeah,
and
Mm-hmm.
you're in it.
Mm-hmm.
Or, well, I grew up in the Iron Range out in the Boundary Waters, and it's like the woods tell you right away, if you don't respect us, we're going to kill you. Like there's
yeah.
no forgiveness out here if you wander off the straight path.
No, definitely not. Like, there's a great little hiking trail about 15 minutes from my house, and
Hmm.
yeah, Clark's Creek. There's a couple of amazing old growth Douglas firs in there
Mm,
that still even have their tops, not just kind of
wow.
shaken by the
Yeah.
wind and stuff. Oh, it's so fun to walk back in there.
Do
Yeah,
you
because you get that
find then,
that.
because of that, because I know here this is the struggle I've had for at least the last 5 years, is in the churches in this area, like we've been talking about a lot, especially in Lent and Easter, is like there's almost no desire for mystery anymore. There's no desire for that sacramental imagination that I find so often in Lewis and Tolkien, which is why I'm so drawn to them. Do you find that there too? Is it kind of this mishmash of kind of like rationalism, but postmodernism mixed in with the rationalism with,
You definitely get a little bit of that. I mean, I think yeah, both of those parts of just our philosophical outlook
yeah.
are part of life here. I think because of where we're at in Western Washington,
Hmm.
I think we get a little bit of that. Yeah, just sort of. I mean, even sometimes it just comes from the natural world. Like, okay, there's Mount Rainier staring right out my study window every day.
Oh,
And
jealous.
every time I look at it, I think, oh, there's the lonely mountain. I'm going to see smog,
Hmm.
flying up the top of it like one of these days.
Yeah.
It probably will. That'll be the day that it finally erupts.
That's right.
Front row view.
Right.
But that sort of thing is just there. It's
Hmm.
yeah, you're anywhere you live, you're like within 10, 15 minutes of decent both urban hiking trails that make you feel like you're out of the city,
Yeah.
and you can drive a little bit further, right, and
Hmm.
get into the woods, kind of thing. So there is a little bit of mix of that too. But it's amazing how easily, I mean, even living here, right, you can
Yeah.
forget it's there, or
Right.
there's people I know that are members that's like when was the last time we went to Mount Rainier, right? When was the last time
Yeah.
we
Right.
just walk in the old growth forest over the Olympic Peninsula, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So it's here and it's accessible, but sometimes it's easy to forget too.
Sure.
Like anywhere, right?
Hmm. Because that's what I noted when we used your draft for our going through the Ten Commandments, because I wanted to see for you, we were talking about that, see how the kids
Right.
reacted to it. And one, my confirmands are illiterate, which is why I wanted to use it, because their
Hmm.
parents don't read to them and their grandparents don't read to them, and it's like as much. And so I don't like my confirmands don't get. You need to memorize the Theological, the Creed for next Sunday. They get you're going to watch Tangled and read the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe before the end of the month
Yep.
with your parents.
Yeah.
It's stunning that at 54 I have more cultural relevance as far as my knowledge of culture than they do, and
Mm.
they're 7 to 12 years old. They should be right there.
Yeah, yeah, that
And
should be like
they're not digesting culture the way that we did growing up.
sure.
And even with our children, right? I have so many excuses to go to great movies because I have children to justify being in the theater rather than being the creepy old guy laughing at the Mario movie alone. But I think for me, especially with children, because I was talking to Gillespie, I had another young friend of mine, man, who just got baptized in the Orthodox Church this past Sunday on Orthodox Easter Sunday, and I said, "That's 4 dozen men now that I've mentored and talked about. Like, this is what I want. This is what I look for in a church as far as worship, liturgy, hymnody, pastor,
Yeah.
catechesis, fellowship." And they go to 4 or 5 Lutheran churches because I'm a Lutheran pastor, and they don't live near enough to me to come to my church. So they're searching out churches, but what they find is, as this young man said to me for the 4 dozenth time, the pastor lacks conviction. He's not very masculine, and the congregation doesn't seem very warm and welcoming. And ultimately, what I'm looking for is something that's so big that it kind of overwhelms me, defeats me, and kind
Yeah.
of carries me. I don't want to be. I don't want therapeutic language. I don't want to be told God loves me the way I am. I don't want any of that. What I want are the deep mysteries. That's
Yeah.
what I want. I want to be.
Yeah.
It's like even we talked about on the show. Even Richard Dawkins goes to Anglican worship on Sunday because of the ancient liturgy. He wants to be swept up in something older and bigger than himself, right? And then out of that, he finds morality waiting for him at the front door, which is interesting because same thing. I don't believe in God, but I find the morality of the Christian West provocative now that I've spent most of my career tearing it apart. And I wonder then,
Yeah.
again, in the writing of the book on, using Narnia to teach the catechism, because I use Brothers Grimm to teach the catechism,
Nice. Yeah.
because again, I find the catechism, it's very interesting. I just find it boring because
Yeah.
it's information, but it's not, it's just bones. It's like, here's the Christian faith.
Right. Right. Yeah. One of the things that I kept in my mind writing the book, kind of going through it, was just when Jesus goes to teach. I mean, he doesn't plop down a doctrinal, systematic, dogmatic book. He teaches with parables predominantly.
Yeah.
So that was kind of just in the back of my head, like, all right, what part of the story, right? How can we use this part to tell the story? And I mean, the catechism itself lends itself very well to a story outline. But you're right, all it has is kind of like chapter headings. It's like, okay, here's the 10 commandments. Here's
Right.
second, third, fourth, fifth commandment, and on. But how can we add some just color? How can we color it in, right? How can we fill in a little bit more?
Right.
But do it, yeah, kind of weaving together both the biblical stories and the mythical stories from Lewis in particular. I didn't. Tolkien comes up a couple times in the intro, but after that, it's just kind of just straight Lewis to try to keep focus, because otherwise I'd be
everywhere.
I'd be
that's
off.
right. It'd be like Albrecht Peter's commentary on the catechism.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it would do what Tolkien likes to do, which is go all sorts of good places. But had to just kind of be very, very deliberate about keeping that specific narrow.
Sam, you did a series on the Inklings on the 1517 site. That was for the conference, right?
Yeah, it was kind of
the Lewis conference.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but Lewis maybe is like the small catechism of the confessions, and Tolkien is more like, I don't know, whatever your favorite is, Augsburg or something, right? It's much more intense and
he's definitely a lot more in depth, right? Probably like the difference between the
but I think it's that focus, right? I think it's the focus on being a lay evangelist from Lewis.
Well, it's like we've talked about too, is that
Rather
with
than
Lewis,
academic.
he's clearly writing to children. Clearly.
Yeah.
He even says it explicitly numerous times.
Right.
Tolkien tells his stories to his children, but he's still the professor.
Yeah.
That's the thing,
Yes.
And I think that's why they balance each other out so well, is because Lewis is constantly, poking at Tolkien saying, hey, don't forget childlike wonder. And Tolkien saying, Father Christmas doesn't belong in this stupid story with a satyr. Why are you mixing theology?
What are you doing? This is not the word.
These mythologies aren't the same. What are you doing?
So I found it. I put it in the show notes. There was a talks with Dad Rod on Father Christmas.
That's
and
right.
how it's a great Christian confession. It's not on the site anymore, but I found it on YouTube, so I linked to it in the show notes.
Nice.
You can watch that.
Nice. I remember that. That was a good one.
Yeah, it was like 15 minutes. Yeah.
in your church, when children come into your church, do you find that they're literate in these things, or is it once you introduce it, they turn on to it really quick?
Yeah, I
And
think a little bit of both. I mean, we've got a handful of kids that are very familiar with Narnia and Tolkien stories. Even before they came here, that was, is one of those kind of like Lewis had with his good friend, like, oh, you like that too, Arthur? You like the
Mhm.
mythologies, and Lewis and Tolkien had that experience with each other too. You guys both like Icelandic and Norse mythology? Yeah, absolutely. So
Right.
we had that kind of interaction with a bunch of different, yeah, both families and kids, and some of the younger families, their parents that have come in.
Hmm.
And some have more like, oh, I like the sound of that. That sounds good. Tell me, tell me more, kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'd like to hear more about that Aslan fellow. You keep talking about him. He sounds interesting. So, I mean, that's kind of a neat thing too, to help, just
Yeah.
share that with people that have maybe never heard of. And
Hmm.
there's nothing better than finding a good story that you didn't know was out there, but that's like, oh, this is a story that sort of makes sense of everything.
Right.
So it's enjoyable when I get to kind of introduce somebody to
Hmm.
Narnia. Hasn't before. Not that it's for everybody. Lewis
Hmm.
admits that too, and so does Tolkien.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, this might not be everybody's thing, but I think for
But I
those, it's
I
good.
wonder, since we're talking about it, and I get to think about it out loud with you, I wonder if this isn't now, because if we talk about like the John Warwick Montgomery era, back,
Hmm.
where there was I call it more muscular apologetics, because the conversation is theological, philosophical. There's still the influence of the Christian
Scholastic.
church
Yeah.
in culture. Like
Hmm.
again, like I've said, like Niebuhr in the 50s, like it was common for time to have a theologian as their man of the year. And
Yeah.
Eisenhower would call
Hmm.
theologians to the White House to consult on decisions that he had to make for, regarding war or trading or these kinds of things. And so I understand. And then by the 70s and 80s, you get the kind of more than a carpenter, Josh McDowell kind of apologetics.
Hmm.
And now I wonder if this isn't the way of apologetics, is to reintroduce people inside and outside the church this way. And I wouldn't call it soft apologetic. I might even call it like mythopoetic apologetics.
Hmm. I think that's a good term for it. Yeah.
Of like, I got to bring you back inside this cosmology, and then
Yeah.
from inside of here, it's
Yeah.
like I tell my Bible class, if we follow the rules of pagans, the big gods kill the small gods, and our God loves to kill other gods. So
Hmm.
even according to the rules of the pagans, Christians have this evangelism of like, man, we're just following. He's just following your rules.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you have to admit that my God's just better than your gods. And the pagans were like, that tracks. Okay, we get that. That's fine.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Let's go chop down some trees. Right.
Because I was just even this morning, I was watching a lecture on early Norse evangelism. When the Norse people got baptized, they were still Norse. They were still Vikings, so to
Right.
speak, but they were Christians,
Yeah.
and that was the deal. Like the king said, get baptized, believe Jesus Christ is the one true God, and then you can still be Norse though. There's
Right.
still plasticity within that, which later we decided that wasn't a good thing. But I noted that after Charlemagne and after Boniface and others, by the time you get to the Middle Ages and then the 1400s, the church is actually actively against that
Mm.
and saying, no, no, like the nominalists are kind of the roots of modern psychology because they internalized faith and they push that. And by the time we get to Luther, then there's that kind of overlap with Luther of he's got the sacramental imagination, the theological imagination, and you see this especially in his letters and apostles. But he's also very German. He's very like the meme, right? Only a German would like memorize the manual and then post 95 corrections on a spreadsheet on the church door.
For sure.
Like,
Yeah.
here's where you're wrong, point one.
Uh-huh.
And you see the origins, I think, in the Reformation, the Lutheran Reformation. You see then the origins of what's coming, this
Yeah.
kind of rational faith. And like Capon says this in Astonished at Heart, that the 1500s and 1600s, that's the age of confessions.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has to publish their confessions. Here is a point by point. This is what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
But I wonder then, because again, then the Enlightenment just takes a giant dump on everything and says it's all superstitious and messy and nonsense.
Yeah.
If that's not where we're at, though, is because I know young people here are dying for something other than just
Yeah.
here's what's happening and this is why, and
Yeah.
have at it.
Yeah. I find that to be true just with, yeah, people of variety of different ages, generations I talk to. It's, we need we just need good stories, and I think that's one of the good ways of communicating. And it very much seems though that, like, I think you're right, in our day and age, that uh, the communication of the gospel, or even the preaching of the gospel, right, through the story, does it resonate with everybody? No, but I mean, nothing ever does
Yeah.
that. There's no silver bullet kind of thing, but by and large, right, it's a big thing, right? It can be a major way of, throwing the net out there, right?
Yeah.
To Jesus parable,
Right.
and then just let it sit, let it simmer. That's what Tolkien and his friends did for Lewis, right? They
Right.
kept hounding him again and again, like, no, Jack, you're missing the story here, right?
Yeah.
And always drawing back to that story, like, no,
Yeah.
this is the myth, but it really happened, right? But don't lose those mythic qualities of it, right? Don't lose those storytelling pieces you love so much, because it's there.
Well, I think, here, especially the past 2 months, we've talked a lot about and dug deep into what Jesus means when he says, unless you have faith like a child, you'll never enter the kingdom.
Yeah.
And taking that as kind of like, this is the primary thesis statement of the Gospels, just for the sake of this conversation. If this were the only thing Jesus ever said, let's dig into this and just talk about what does it mean to read the prophets or Genesis or the Psalms with this right in front of your face, of like, be like a child when you read this. And again, the beauty of being a pastor and talking with children in Sunday school confirmation is you get an opportunity, almost like an excuse, like a privilege, to be childlike and not lose contact with the ground or destroy them completely by giving them rational explanations to everything.
Yep. No, we've got a preschool here, and
Nice.
we've got a lot of younger kids. There was a children's message a few weeks ago that we had that we were just talking about. I forget I don't remember what the gospel lesson was, but it was the point was that, when Jesus speaks his word, right, he gives us his word, and so I just held up the Bible and asked the kids, like, what book is this? And one little boy just said, "Oh, that's the Jesus book." Right? It's like, again, there's that faith, but also that wonder and imagination at the same time, and it was beautiful to behold. And you get those moments when you just sit with the kids, whatever kind of setting is. So, I think that's a good thing to approach the prophets with, right? Because they're doing, talk about imagination, right? Ooh,
Right.
Man.
Right.
The prophets and the Psalms and
Right. Well, and again, it's all poetry, it's all poetics. And so it's who was it who told me this? It might have been Shaw or Bly, whoever. It was that when something is like, stories communicate what's incomprehensible. Like the story is trying to tell you a big truth, a big heavenly truth that you just can't, like, the explanation of it wouldn't make any sense. Nagel, in his sermon on Isaiah, says, in order to explain Jesus to a grasshopper, a human would have to become a grasshopper, so that you speak grasshopper and use these images that grasshoppers use. And then beyond that, though, is when even the story can't communicate the truth, it's so beyond even the communication through story. That's where poetry comes in at. Like, poetry is the metaphysics of, this is so high, so heavenly, so beyond comprehension, that not even like prose could explain this. So we're just going to throw out poetics. Like, it's like this. It looked like amethyst, because that's the closest I got. That's all I got. I can't even compare this.
Sapphire stone.
You're like, he was like a lion or like a lamb, but he had a whole bunch of horns and eyeballs. It was horrifying, but yet beautiful. And you're like, he's like, I don't know. I don't know. I'm a fisherman, for God's sakes. Leave me alone. I don't know what I'm doing. But again, the same thing of, when that's expressed that way for children, they get it, because they live in that liminal space of, it's the Steve Jobs taking the first iteration of the Mac to a party and putting it on the floor, and all the adults just stared at it. And then when the adults got bored and walked away, he came back and there was a little kid just playing with it, and it figured it out in like 3 minutes. And again, I wonder, to the point then, because you and I, we trade sermons every week, and that's the thing then that you've influenced me, is because when I went to seminary in the late 90s and then double dipped, it was, don't preach like the old guys with their Reader's Digest stories, right?
Right. Sure.
And because it's quote unquote bad, they're just bad stories, and we don't know how they have anything to do with the reading for the day, and et cetera, et cetera. This is a common complaint. Anybody who's grown up in church knows it. Versus, we've talked about, okay, but we're bringing stories into our sermons now.
Yeah.
And the influences are there in yours, and then they bleed over into me. I'm like, well, if Sam can preach, use Lewis as an example, I can use Tolkien. Like, and then they're like, Pastor, what do you do? I'm like, well, there's this other pastor in Washington. He does it great. So it's not my fault.
That's right. I'll take it.
He's a bad influence on me. But again, what do you, to that point, did you always have that in your preaching and teaching style, or did you come to it later, or?
I mean, I think it's always been there. I think I've focused more on it lately. I don't know, maybe last, like, let's say like 10 years.
Okay.
So seminary homiletics class for us was very much like, here, make your outline, follow this 3-point, 4-point, 5-point, whatever it is outline. You can flip it around and do it inductively this kind of way, and then do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 kind of thing. It's like, sometimes those things work, but for my brain, it just never seemed to click other than having to do it for assignments.
Son, you're not making Christianity better, you're making rock and roll worse.
No, it's like this might, this just might not work. So I don't know, I just kind of started tinkering around, and it's like, I don't know, how would I want to hear this? And maybe that doesn't mean to sound selfish, but it's like, if I want to tell a story, it's like, how would I want to hear the story? So I just kind of go about it that way, and it's like, what would draw me in, right? What would want to make me keep reading a book or listening to something? So I think that combined with just kind of some brevity too, right? Because the length can be a problem. So you find a point or two, and then you hone on in that, and then just tell a story, like tell the story of the text, or tell the story of maybe it's there was a couple of Sundays ago where it was something, just trying to make a bigger point from the Old Testament, weaving in Old Testament stories to it too. So sometimes it's a biblical narrative focus. Sometimes I'll try not to. There's been a few times where, like Easter Sunday, one of my high school students like, you didn't bring in Lewis or Tolkien, and I was like, yeah, I know.
We have guests.
Sunday. I was like, no,
We have guests.
That's funny.
It is like Jesus with his parables, where they're like, don't ask Pastor Schuldheisz a question because he's just going to answer with a Lewis quote, and we won't understand what he's saying.
Go off talking about the trees and
That's right, exactly.
Matters.
Look at the trees,
I intentionally find myself just can't go there every time, but when it works, sometimes it just works, right?
You alluded to it at least, or brought up, I think that's the key point though, because this hit in the middle of my presentation last week was, if you're going to tell a story, the difference between the pastor who brings in a story where you're sitting there going, what does this have to do with the gospel reading versus, is that point of, if you're going to tell a story, whether it be biblical or extra biblical, everything you say after that has to actually be pulled back into that. It almost functions like a thesis.
Right. Yeah.
Like, here's my thesis story.
Yeah. That's kind of how usually that's one of the main starting things for any sermon is okay, what's the theme, right? Or what's the thesis kind of thing? And just, it may not ever, sometimes it's not even a clearly formed sentence. Sometimes it is. It's just an idea. But then just try to roll with that, right? Try to go with that and try to see where it takes you, because it's like a story, right? It has kind of a strange life and breath of its own.
Right.
And you just kind of go, you jump in the stream, right? And see where it takes you. And sometimes that goes where you thought it would go.
And sometimes
it takes you someplace different, right? You end up with, hey, who's this Strider fellow over in the inn, right?
That's right, exactly.
I never knew where he came from, Tolkien said.
Right.
There he is.
Yeah.
But I don't know. For me, it's helpful. It just kind of organizes my thoughts there, and I think for the most part, it sounds like people have received that pretty well, or followed along as best they can.
I think something also that's equally as valid, just as important for us now too, is that with Lewis in particular, but obviously with Tolkien as well, is in the reflection on first article stuff, we would call it creation stuff, right? Is that the story, for example, like Lord of the Rings, the story of the Lord of the Rings is as much a story of environmentalism and conservation, because Lewis spoke for the trees, which I'm positive Dr. Seuss stole that straight from him to make the Lorax. Who speaks for the trees? Well, the professor does actually, but this will pass. But I wonder about that too, because again, where you live at, because it's a huge issue for me, where we live at, because a report was just published last week that where I live at has one of the largest percentages of lymphoma in the entire United States, like the most cancer in a particular cancer, and they've now linked it to Roundup because the farmers spray their fields, and so we have massive problems with cancer in this part of the world. And when I talk to people then about first article stuff, I can't talk to them about it because they're so culturally indoctrinated that it's spring, there's invasive weeds in the yard. As my wife jokes, she learned last year, we're the family who the mom feeds them weeds. That's the gospel of my wife. She feeds us weeds. And we're like, well, A, yes, she does. But B, we also eat other food.
Right.
But it's that sense of, again, through narrative, through story, I can get them to like tune into creation talk, first article stuff. Whereas if I just talk catechetically about this, they tune out immediately. Like at a different time, old fashioned people, they didn't know,
Right.
you know?
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about you. If you read Lord of the Rings, there's a lot of great things to take away from it, but one of them is don't touch my trees, right?
Right, exactly.
Leave them alone. I mean, I noticed that even in our, Milton's kind of it used to be, it was a literal mill town, but the mill town was already taken, so they named it Milton.
Oh, okay.
And I mean, there's kind of a sense of paradise lost around here because it's, you see the places where there were old tree groves,
right?
And now that there's a housing development where everybody's staring at each other through the kitchen, and Safeway is where there used to be, a big field and that kind of stuff, and so just down the hill from us, there's there were farmlands, but now they're putting a freeway through it, so it's like I find myself more and more sympathizing with Tolkien and Lewis, and it's like, just leave the stuff alone.
The church that I was at last week, this is wild. I'm sitting with two of the elders talking to them because obviously they're the most interesting people to talk to at a conference. And the two elders said to me where we were sitting at that moment, they used to fish there.
Wow.
Because they just drained the entirety of the swamp and the lake to build the town.
Yeah.
And so they were talking about that too, like, well, that used to be a flop house, and this is where I used to fish, and we used to catch frogs on the other side of the church.
Yeah.
And that loss of, again, with Lewis, that he also, in Narnia especially, that when the creation is fallen, you can see it because, again, like with the prophets, the first sign that, God's wrath is fallen or that we've turned away from God to worship other gods is creation stops producing, right? They stop calving. There's no fruit on the trees. The water dries up. The clouds dry up. And we talk about that a lot here of, well, if you really want to know what God's attitude is towards, the United States today or the world, just pay attention to what happens in the world. Like, look at the ground if you can see it. Like you said, it's like, I used to be able to see trees. Now I just see my neighbor's kitchen, and we're just waving at each other through the windows. We wash dishes. And again, it's that, for me, it's the loss of theological imagination. That's what I run into the most.
Yeah, you see that. I mean, you see it in nature. You see it even just in, look at the movies. It's like, okay, we're going to do a redo of this movie, right? We're going to do a sequel to this movie. It's like, nobody's got, aside from a theological imagination, which is obviously way more important, there's just imagination in general.
Yeah,
people have lost that too. And, but I mean, for me, that's just a reinforcing point of all the more to, all right, let's do what we can in our, in our backyards, right? To teach and kind of try to train up our theological imaginations to let them flourish and do what they do, and that's not going to solve everything, or that's not going to take care of all of Saruman's pits.
Yeah, right. But at the very least, like, again, when we went through the commandments in your book and then going through Grimm's with my stuff, what it does is it gives children that, for lack of a better term, that mystery imagination of, when I leave the church and I walk outside, Pastor has said, hey, look at this story. Not only is this talking about when you, like you said, when you come to the rail or you come to a baptism and you're thinking, well, Pastor's baptizing a baby, but now I'm thinking about Eustace and the dragon and Aslan, because we were talking about that. And so, right. And then when Pastor says, well, there's all these angels that are in church with us right now, you have the imagination now to go outward and say, yeah, there's so much stuff going on that I can't see, but I've got, the door is open now to that. So then when I go outside, like we talk about all the time in my confirmation class, is when you're watching those shows, where's baptism? Where's the Lord's Supper? Where's the Jesus figure? Where's Satan? Where's the power of darkness? Because what we do is I teach patterns, right? Patterns of recognition. So who is the white queen? Well, you're probably not going to run into an actual white queen today. Well, in the Midwest, you might, because there's so many Scandinavians. But if you run into a wolf or a dragon or the white queen today, what's the pattern? What's the characteristics, right? You're not going to run into a black, scaly, fire-breathing lizard, but you're definitely running into a dragon. Like you said with Chesterton's quote, he's not saying an actual dragon will descend upon your town. But if you know what a dragon behaves like, you're going to run into lots of dragons today. And I've noticed with my confirmands then, and I want to hear your thoughts on this. Now they come back and say, hey, I ran into a wolf at school today. I'm like, well, tell me about the wolf. Well, remember we talked about wolves do 1, 2, 3, and this was just like that, Pastor. I'm like, interesting. Okay. So what did you do? Well, I remember what we talked about, which is I said my prayer to Jesus and I asked the angels to protect me and I got away from them and didn't follow them. And same thing, right? That theological imagination and also sacramental within that, like big picture of going back to the blood, going back to the water, going back to the word. And I think that's the key right now, generationally speaking. I think that's the key to get retention, if nothing else, to get other people to come into churches, just to say to young people, we're just going to kind of blow the fuses on this because it just can't handle the electricity that heaven's putting out.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the things about, I don't know, at least here with our, in the area, we're probably one of the more, high church kind of churches, right? But, I mean, people come here and they see that and they experience that and they kind of live in it and kind of let it breathe, right? Let it soak in. And like, okay, something, walking through a church door should be kind of like walking through the wardrobe.
Yeah, 100%.
Where you
exactly.
you're entering a new world here, right? You're entering. I mean, you're entering heaven on earth, quite literally. So it should look and sound and smell and taste different. And I mean, I think one of the great things about stories, like we've been talking about, is that guys like Lewis and Tolkien understood that, so that there was this. It wasn't like this clean separation between real world stuff and stuff, or even like real world biblical stuff and myth stuff. It's like there's this bleeding, right? There's this overlap. There's this thin veil between the myth and the truth of it. And you can discern the difference, but at the same time, it's like it's there, right? So you see a tree in the backyard, it's like, oh no, I think the Ents are looking for their Ent wives today, right? Or Father Christmas has brought some gifts, and hey, here we are. So I think stories can do that, and both biblical and outside of the Bible.
Yeah.
And catechism is a good place to do that. Bible class is a good place to do that. We spend a lot of time in our adult Bible class, whatever book of the Bible we're going through, and it's like, all right, where are we connecting this to our stories? And the great thing about that is that sinks in, and then you're right, like your kids have expressed, right, and people hear and like, I was out. You take that with you, right? It's just part of you, like your breath.
Yeah.
Breath you breathe, or the air that's around you, kind of the food you take in.
Yeah. That's the thing, building off of that, is then when I sponsor people in recovery from addiction, I always ask, what are the stories that you tell? And they're, again, especially when they're new to recovery, all the stories are, well, I was an addict and then I hit bottom and then, consequences. And then I tell them, hey, you need to find new stories, non-using, non-addict, because those are past tense stories. Those are over your shoulder stories. And if you keep focusing on that, you will just kind of get stuck in the like walking the path of, well, I'm an addict because I was an addict, versus, well, is there a path of healing? What are the stories that you tell? Do they have hope in them? Do they pull you into a better future, a sober future? Or are you just constantly looking over your shoulder, worried about the past coming back to jump on you and devour you?
Yeah.
And I think too that what I find then is adults don't have stories. They have bad stories. They have spell casting stories that they get from their screens.
Yeah.
And that's going back to what I said earlier when I asked my confirmands, what do you watch then? And it is, well, we play Minecraft and we're on TikTok. And I'm like, those are the worst stories you could listen to. Not only are they short and drab, but they're all war, violence, terrorism, Iran, Israel, Palestine, Ukraine.
There's nothing past the 20th century there, or deeper than that, right? Either.
Right.
Yeah.
They're all worm tongue, right?
Did you?
Yeah.
Did you see the Rick Beato video on the recent Spotify songs? But
Yes,
because he makes
yes.
this point.
He really
They're
has
all
turned into a
made
grumpy
popular
old man.
TikTok. Oh yeah, I love it. And the thing that he noted throughout is until you got to the very top 2 songs, I think there was never a key change.
Right.
There was never even like a chord change in some of the songs.
Yeah.
It was on the same chord for a minute and a half.
Yeah.
With no change.
And he was
So
complaining there's
just
no
that
bridges in
flattening
the
of the
songs anymore.
imagination.
Yeah, there's not even a bridge. There's no transitions,
Yeah,
right? We
yeah.
were talking about this with
Yeah.
relation to the Song of Creation is, if for Tolkien, evil is dissonance. So there's a place in every song for dissonance, meaning when in Job, for example, when he tells the evil one, you can do this, but not that. Or after the fall of Babel, when he says, I'm putting rebel angels as governors over the nations to try them. Like, why do we always pass over that passage, and like nobody talks about that passage after Babel. You're like, oh, you think that was bad? Check this out. That's mind blowing.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, no doubt.
But the same thing of, because on Wednesday morning Bible class, one of my beloveds said, what was that thing that Elijah said to the prophets? What was that thing? I go, maybe God's in the shitter. Like, yep, maybe your God's in the shitter. He can't come out right now. I'm like, he's like, that's the best. That's
Right.
the best. I'm like, you've been thinking about that, huh? He's like, yeah, I just keep coming back to that. I'm like, okay, cool, fantastic. That's a great image.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to use the euphemism.
Right.
Relieving himself. Yeah.
Cousin Randy out at the curb outside the RV, emptying out the septic. Merry Christmas.
Yeah.
But I that's the thing too that I encounter is I want to introduce them to these hopeful stories, these stories that,
Yeah.
again, you can be an adult, as Lewis says, right? I hope one day you're old enough to read fairy tales again.
Yeah.
Is to say to my adults, if you're embarrassed to read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe by yourself as an adult, find a child. If you don't have any around, volunteer at the library, volunteer to read at the school.
Yeah.
Be that person, right? Be the elder of the village who brings the cool stories with them.
Yep.
And the kids go, he's weird. We love it.
Yeah.
And-
That's strange, but there's something about it that's really amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because again, the centrifugal force or whatever, the gravitational pull of children and their wonder and curiosity is infectious and is so welcomed. But it is breaking down the barrier for adults to say it's okay.
Yeah.
Because most adults, at least here, say, well, I haven't read a book since high school, right? That
Yeah.
kind of thing, or college. And I always ask, well, what were you reading that was so bad? Well, I don't like to read. I'm like, that's not true. Again, as Martin Shaw says, no one at the end of their life says, I wish I had listened to less great stories.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're just listening to really bad stories. And of course, with our elderly, our widowers and widows, it is just weather and pharmaceutical commercials all day, every day. And they come to church all spun up, right? And then I start telling them stories about hope, and it just on the spool so fast. It's like, well, we went fishing for lake trout, and I caught a marlin,
Yeah.
and just zzz, they don't even know what to do with those stories.
Yeah.
And again, I wonder if it's not a godly and God-pleasing for us inside the church to say to our own members, we kind of have to reintroduce you to not only just, hey, here's some better stories, but here's biblical stories that can like the parables. These translate everywhere.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, that's kind of what Lewis is talking about at the end of Weight of Glory, right? He says,
Yeah,
do you think I'm trying to weave a spell? Yeah, I am, right?
right.
I'm trying to, there's this re-enchantment that
Yeah.
is happening there. And absolutely, I mean, there's dark magic, but there's good magic, to speak of it that way too. And
Right.
that's what good stories bring, like Lewis and others, is that they bring that good spell from the gospel, right?
Right, exactly.
Ultimately, and weave it in, and sometimes intentionally, sometimes unintentionally, but there it is, all the same.
Yeah.
And then just kind of let it loose like a wild animal, and
Yeah.
see
Yeah,
what
exactly. Well, talk more about that too, because I think that's a provocative point. Is when people come through the doors of the church, I'm totally quoting you on Substack for that too. That's great. But again, coming through the doors of the church, passing through the wardrobe, into Narnia, into Camelot. But it is, hey, what I'm presenting you with here narratively, fantastically, is actually an image of heaven that I get from, especially Revelation, but also the prophets.
Yeah.
So why don't we talk that way inside the church to break the bad spells, so to speak? But no,
Yeah.
it's totally true that's what spellcasting is. So again, in your preaching and teaching, in the writing of the book, is that then something that we can also, is it even worth it to make that a point of conversation?
Well, I think so. I mean, this is just one piece of
Yeah.
life, right? Well, it's catechism focused, obviously, but it's I think at least my hope is
Hmm.
that we take that idea. Okay, if I can do this with the catechism, why couldn't I, step into church and have, again, have a not just a theological imagination, but have this liturgical imagination. That
Yes, yes, yes.
I'm Simeon coming to the
Mm-hmm.
altar, prepared to die, or I am Jacob standing
Mm-hmm.
at the feet of the stairs, and here's the
Hmm.
angel ascending and descending, and here's the Son of Man on the
Yeah.
altar in simple bread and wine, right? Here's the waters of the Red Sea
Hmm.
right in the font in front of me, where the child is baptized, or where an 89-year-old is baptized,
Yeah.
where we all become children anyway. Um, yeah, I think that's kind of that's part of the hope too, is that people see that in the storytelling and catechism
Hmm.
teaching realm, and then say, oh yeah, well
Yeah. This is
this
the old magic.
is true, this is real. Everyone,
Mm-hmm.
there's that old thing of, oh well, I got to go to church and then I'm ready for the real world the rest of the week. Actually, it's
Right.
the opposite way around, right?
Yeah.
Church is the real world. Everything
Yeah.
else around us is, should be affected by that. But
Hmm.
what happens on Sunday morning in divine service
Right.
is it's really truly real, and then everything else should, you know,
Hmm.
fruit and tree,
Right.
flow downstream from it.
Well, that's the provocative statement from the Bondage of the Will, where Luther speaks categorically: whatever is not Christ is not the truth, but a lie. Whatever is
Yeah,
not Christ is not the way, but rather you're lost, and so on.
yeah,
Is to frame it that way. The early church did that. That they said when you enter into the liturgy, you're entering into reality.
yeah,
And so, for listeners, especially from your point of view, having that vision, so to speak, that vision of there's so much more going on than just what our five senses can grasp.
hmm
That point of emphasis then is that, because I was going to ask, is the theological, sacramental, liturgical imagination, is that allow you then, when you're thinking through Lewis's corpus, to say, oh, this is baptismal, or this is definitely the blood, or like again something obvious like maybe the stone table, for
sure,
example, in
yeah,
Aslan, you're like, that's pretty on the nose, versus maybe the beavers, for example, like, well, what do they symbolize and who are they, versus
yeah, yeah,
within the liturgical mind, that liturgical vision, you go, well, that's us, like we're
right,
beavers,
right.
little pious beavers.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I think one of the great things of the way that Jesus tells the parables, not just that he does tell stories, but the way that he tells them, is that he tells them in such a way that, quite often he's hooking you in, right? He's
Yeah.
got the shepherd's crook, and he's reeling you in, that you're not just listening to it, but you're actually in it.
Hmm.
And that's, I mean, that's true of Lewis too, is that you're sitting around that table
Yeah.
with, with Lucy and Edmund and Peter, and
Right.
you're listening to the story, and Aslan's like, oh, this is awe-inspiring and wondrous, and yeah, I think those kind of things, just that's what you don't even realize it, but you're being taught, right? You're
Hmm.
being worked upon. You're being you're being trained
Yeah.
in the imagination as you're listening it, as you're coming to it. So that, I mean, it's good to take that same thing and bridge it. All right,
Hmm.
now this is what's happening. This is what's
Right.
happening in Sunday morning too. Like
Well,
you're,
I think you bring up such a great point of transition too, is when we talk about theological imagination or even sacramental imagination, it is very easy for the old Adam to take that captive and say, well, it's all inside of me coming out of me.
yeah,
So then
yeah,
I kind of have to do these things so that I can see, versus liturgically, and this is something that I go crazy for too, is the liturgy is just there. You enter into it, it's objectively there.
hmm
And it does not allow you to not, like, you could, I suppose, just say this is all just fantastic, hopium, angels, archangels, the whole company of heaven, Simeon singing, all these things, versus I think for you and I and Gillespie, it's like, no, these are real. Like, this is
yeah,
really happening right now.
yeah,
And if it's really happening, we're extremely narrow then in our understanding of what's happening to not only in church, but just in general.
right, right. Yeah, it's again back to that kind of that idea of Lewis of re-enchanting the world, so that when you go out into the woods, you don't just see trees, you
Hmm.
see trees plus,
Hmm.
plus the angels dancing in them above, right?
Do you
Kind of like,
think So do you think that that's why people have said, famously, well, I can worship God anywhere. I can worship him out, in nature,
Yeah.
because they don't have the liturgy, right? They're saying, here's my cathedral, here's
Yeah,
the liturgy.
Yeah, I mean everybody's got a liturgy, right?
Yeah.
They're looking for one, and the problem is if you don't have that liturgical imagination,
Right.
that or that sacramental, okay, incarnate Christ presence,
Yes.
then you've got to find a God somewhere, right? So
Right.
it will be the next living, breathing, moving thing that you find, and
Yeah. But if you have that liturgical imagination and you ask a tree to absolve you and it won't, because they're just selfish that way. No, more specifically, it takes them 200 years to actually absolve you because
Right.
they've got to discuss it first.
That's right. Very, very slow.
That's
very,
right.
very too
Exactly. I'm
hasty.
dying. We're almost to in the name of Jesus. But I don't have to worship God in nature because I know when I go into the liturgy, when I enter into the liturgy, I'm going to get the good news, the gospel,
Yeah.
first thing.
Yep.
And then I can go out and climb a mountain, or I can go out for a hike and camp, or I can just go for an afternoon excursion along the river because I've been at the table, I've been in the house of the Lord. Now I'm going to go play in the fields of the Lord.
Yeah.
And then return home like, I don't know, a sheep.
Yep. Yep. Yeah, they write the Psalms, right? The heavens declare the glory of the Lord.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you don't hear that in the gospel first, that's not you're not gonna your ears aren't gonna be tuned to that.
Yeah.
The music isn't gonna sound as rich or as deep and as full.
Right.
But you're right. When you do,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden you step outside, or you look at the stars in the night, like, wow, this is not dead dark. This is alive. This is
Yeah.
right. This is teeming with life, kind of thing. Yeah, you get that. Right? You get that from the Word and the sacraments. I mean, that's where it comes from ultimately.
Do you think that's why with every innovation we just make more noise?
Yeah.
Because again, ultimately we're asking that question, but we just don't know how to express it. But it's there, it's innate. It's the old Adam straining towards the gate again. Like, how do we get back in, kind of thing. And so the world is just full of so much noise. And we were talking last episode about everything that you consume through your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your ears, and your fingers. Everything you consume, you digest. And so the more noise, the more you're consuming. So you're almost like postmodernity is almost like the sin of gluttony, in the sense of like everything we invent is just more. Whereas the liturgy says you're going to sit down, you're going to listen, you're not going to talk until I tell you to talk. You're going to receive all these things, and you're going to be filled.
Yeah.
So then when you go back into the world, you can say, I'm full. I can't do this today. I can't doom scroll.
Right.
These kinds of things, and especially with children. I think it's like telling a child to read a book, not a Kindle book, or like read a book. Don't watch a movie about it.
A hard copy.
It's wild when I tell them that, because their first question is, where do we get that? Like, where do we get? I'm like, well, there's Amazon. What are you, Luddites?
Right.
But it is the same thing. It's like I have to shame their parents pastorally to say, I order you in the name of Jesus to order the Chronicles of Narnia. Go to Half Price Books. Do what you need. Yeah.
Go read it. Yeah. Yeah. Go
And
do
so
that.
for Christmas, I gave them that assignment. I said, you're going to read this for Advent and Christmas. Just read the first book, because we were going through your stuff.
Yeah.
And nobody, except my daughter, had read the Chronicles of Narnia. Nobody knew what I was talking about. I almost assigned them the old BBC, early 80s BBC version of the Chronicles.
Yeah. That's good.
It's so wild. I forgot. I just watched a clip last night that Tom Baker, Doctor Who, was in that production, being very Tom Baker. He's so over the top. He's just chewing scenery. But the same thing is my 7-year and 8, 9-year-olds, they just don't have an imagination because they don't have anyone reading to them.
Yeah.
They have no reference point. So when I say we're watching Tangled this week, next Sunday we're talking about it. And it's how does this reference then, that we might live under him in his kingdom and serve him in righteousness, innocence, and blessedness forever. What does the golden hair have to do with original sin? These kinds of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
And once we go through it and they see it,
Yep.
all systems go. It's kind of like when you explain the parable of the prodigal the first time. You tell that,
Right.
and you just go, all right, where does this grab you? And everyone in the room just has a different point of contact with it, but yet everybody understands there's something unjust about this story. Something's not, there's a pebble in the shoe here.
Right.
Kids get it right away. They're like, well, why doesn't he just kill a goat? I'm like, oh, let's talk about that. He's like, well, aren't they his goats? It's funny, your parents couldn't figure that out, but you seem to go right to it.
Yeah. I mean, another reason kids are the greatest, right?
I think that, back to your earlier point, the reason that media is so bad today is because the stories they're not even striving for justice. They're not even striving for like, this is just, this is unjust, but rather
Yeah.
like it's all relative, and it's all about your inner power and
Right.
finding that and being the person that you are always, it's been inside of you. It's very Jungian, actually.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
there's no traction there because it's just literally like, here's the product, consume the product, and then get excited for next product.
Yep. Yeah. It's, I mean, in a way, it's kind of this strange paradox, right? We're starved for stories on one hand, and then at the same time, we're also bombarded with all these. I mean, really, all they are stories of death. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, the continual making of an iPhone, right?
Yeah.
iPhone, remember this, and
Yeah.
it's like it's just all a story of death, right?
Right. Yeah.
This one's dead, you need a new one, right? This one's
Right.
dead, you need a new one. Upgrade to the newest thing, get the newest app, whatever kind of stuff. And it's what is that? There's that other Chesterton line, right? You know, Christianity has died many times. Awesome. Like,
Yeah, exactly. That's what we
here's
do.
the difference, right? We know the God. We have the God who knows his way out of the grave.
Right.
And good stories, right? Good stories will give that to you.
Mm-hmm.
They'll give you the hope when all you see is despair, right? They'll give you good news when all you're seeing is depressing, right? Doom scrolling stuff.
Right.
They'll give you something that's actually not going to rot your brain and give you
Mm-hmm.
something to hope and hold on to. And it's like, oh, there, okay, that's something that can bring me
Right.
joy, even if nothing else around me is joyful. Like, all right,
Yeah.
Aslan conquers the witch, right? And you know,
Right.
Sam and Frodo get the ring to Mordor,
Yeah.
and yeah, this kind of stuff, right?
Well, one of the most powerful lines in the whole story is Gandalf explaining to Frodo why he doesn't kill him,
Yep.
because he's
Yep.
like, actually, he may be the key. It's wild. It's like the Big Lebowski. Like, Lebowski has no agency, but he's supposed to be the protagonist, even though he has, like, you just pluck him out in the whole plot. Same thing with Gollum. Like, Gollum,
Yes.
in a way, Gollum is the central figure of the entire story, ultimately. He's like
Yeah.
Anakin Skywalker.
Right. Yeah. Rereading it again during Lent. I used that Lenten reading program you had sent me of
Yeah.
reading Lord of the Rings through Lent and into
Yeah.
Easter. That was one of the things that I noticed again. Actually, I thought, really, this is. I mean, everybody talks about, like, you know, who's your favorite main character, and Gollum's definitely not one of my favorites. But I mean, because there's some awesome moments where he could be. But I mean, Samwise, for obvious reasons, is always my favorite. But how central he is, because without that, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Game over, right? And what drives Gollum being in there is beautiful, right? It's mercy, it's pity,
Yeah.
and Gandalf is the one there to continually remind not just Frodo and Sam about it, but the reader too. Like, this is, yeah, mercy triumphs, which is not the way that I think anybody else would have written that, but I'm glad he did.
Well, it's and similarly then with Edmund, for example, in this context then of the, it's like a friend of mine who's an old retired pastor now said the reason Matthew's always referring to the religious leaders is because that's actually us. Like, we're not the disciples, we're not Jesus, we're
Yeah.
not the crowds, we're the religious leaders. We're the ones who are like,
Yeah.
we're the systematicians who are like, well, right here in the book it says, you know, Article 14, subsection 3.
What the law says you must do. Yeah.
Right. And similarly, then with Edmund, catechetically speaking, I think that's what puts flesh on the bones. And it's like, if the blessing of the catechism is it gives you, again, to quote Lewis, I think from Mere Christianity, he said, you know, the Proverbs are like little candies and the Psalms are like Thanksgiving meals, Thanksgiving dinners. Is, for me, the small catechism has always been like that, like little cordials, little candies. Here's the first commandment. Here's the first petition of the Lord's Prayer. Here's the table of duties. And they're not meant to be like read literarily. They're meant to be like taught and memorized and learned. And then you bring in a character like Edmund, for example, into the catechism and say, well, how does this from Luther, like,
Yep.
how does Edmund embody that? Like you said,
Yep.
incarnational thinking. How
Yep.
does Edmund embody this so that when you meet an Edmund in the world, you can say, well, oh, Edmund's in my class with me, or Edmund is my neighbor, or Edmund is the little boy that kneels with me at the altar on Sundays. To me, it's not only that, it's such a great bridge into pastoral care then.
Sure. Oh, definitely. I mean, this is why, yeah, and this is one reason why stories are so great, right? Because you see others around you in the story, and then hopefully if you're letting the story do what it does, you'll get to the point of
Right.
where, okay, I'm Edmund sometimes too, right?
Yeah, right.
And or I'm Eustace. I'm the
Yeah.
sniffly little snotty kid.
Right.
He knows everything. And
Right.
okay, I need to be humbled and undragoned too.
Right.
Which is beautiful, and it's like what Nathan did with David, right?
Yeah.
You're the man, right?
Yeah.
You're the man. And stories can do that just beautifully and powerfully in ways that other things just don't work the same, right? And,
Even the image of Aslan sacrificing himself for Edmund to free him from the witch, the queen, to me again is that Jesus Christ may be my Lord. Going back to the second article, it's like I can say that, they can memorize it, but there's no traction there. There's no meat. Yeah. Versus if I go, well, this is just like what Aslan did for Edmund. And then they have this image of Jesus the lion on the stone table. They have the image of his mane being sheared off. So then you go, well, on the night in which he was betrayed, arrested, and so on, they go, what's torture look like? Well, what'd they do to Aslan?
Yeah.
And why did they do that? Why would they do that to Aslan? Why did he didn't, and then to me, again, to have one of the things my teacher talks about now is when he's doing counseling with trauma survivors or prisoners or small groups is, I know this from addiction, it's like when you sit around a table with recovering addicts, your story becomes almost like a journalistic recounting of events. I was this, then this happened, then I got sober. And it becomes almost bloodless. It is pretty much bloodless because you just say it. Versus what he says now is, okay, I want you to tell the same story, but I want you to tell it in the third person as a fairy tale. And he says what happens is you have these guys in prison for life. They're gangbangers. They killed people. They're never getting out. Here's a 13-year-old sexually molested by dad and uncle. Da 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 da. As soon as both those people tell it in the third person as a fairy tale, they both just break down. They both completely lose control of their emotions and start weeping, because there's something about telling the story in the third person, even if it is, like you said, telling the story of Nathan and David. Yeah. We can laugh at that or turn our noses up at that and go, how could he be so dumb? Why would he do that?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, but what if we told this as not just a historical story, but what if we just put you in it and we told it in the third person about you? Of course, now I need to know, what would Nathan be talking about in relation to you? Right. Well, let's move on, Pastor. Let's not.
Yeah, let's not go there.
I've never done anything as bad as that. It's like, I don't know. Don't give yourself more credit.
Right. Yeah.
But again, children are so drawn to good stories to begin with, and I think that's why it's been so easy for me to catechize the children at church into the liturgy, because when they say, "Why do you burn incense?" Well, it's to raise our prayers up to God. It's to drive away the powers of darkness, and it's also an asthmatic. It clears out your lungs. Yeah. Every child that asks goes, "That's cool," and then off we go, right? And then they go to school and tell all their friends at school, like at church on Sunday, we drive away evil spirits with incense.
Right.
And the adults are like, "Shh, easy. Pastor's it's just a story," and like it is the truest of all stories. It's
right. It is most certainly that, and more. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
But just that, how quickly, like within our own church tradition, how quickly we said, all that old stuff is just superstitious. It's not true. And yet, as far as I can see in my experience, we simply just replaced that with therapeutic language, the language of the self rather than the soul.
Sure. Yeah. Turned inward rather than outward or right or upward. Right.
Yeah, because then it's so difficult to feed souls. It's so difficult to care for souls, to be a Seelsorg. Yeah. Because they're like, well, no, everything's happening in my brain, and it's all, so a little bit of emotion, but I'm mostly logical. Yeah. Versus, no, you're not. You're definitely not. Go to a voters meeting. But rather, same thing of like, you're surrounded by these people, and the people around you are pointing you out the mouth of the fish. They're pointing you out toward the world. They're not, like you said, the story they're telling you is like survive, grind, you only live once, versus let the fish swallow you. Yeah. Let the fish vomit you up on Narnia's shores. Let the fish put you there so God can give you a sermon to preach to those people. Yeah. And they might just repent and live.
Right. Yeah. They might just find themselves like, oh yeah, this is right. Oh, this is a story too. I'm in it. Like what is it? It's Strawberry the unicorn, right?
Right.
Last battle, like this is my country. I never knew it all along. I was supposed to be here.
Right.
This is beautiful. Further in. Here we go.
Yeah.
Like, okay, now you're getting it. Yeah.
Yes.
That's awesome. Yeah.
That's funny. My My stuffed animal was that child was named Strawberry.
Nice.
I took him everywhere with me. I didn't know. As Lewis said, I've said this now lately. I've got turned on to that. God baptized my imagination long before he baptized me
Yeah,
into Christ. Yeah.
It's one of the great things that stories does too, right? I mean, it did it for Lewis. Even though Tolkien was baptized, long before he started writing stories, you can see how it was true for him too.
Yeah. Well, I think going back to our point, what they also had in common, though, because I'm a big fan of the discarded image, especially the last couple of years I've been reading it, is Lewis is Anglican, Tolkien is devoutly pre-Vatican II Roman Catholic,
So yeah,
and both, crazy knowledgeable about the Middle Ages and the medieval church and how that influenced all of culture. And they have touch points, but the thing, even though Lewis and Tolkien disagree on medieval history in relation to the Grail, the Cup, the Mass, where Lewis just can't go as far as Tolkien goes with that.
Yeah.
They have the liturgy in common, though. That's the thing, I think, is
Yes.
it's not as if Lewis is kind of like a modern evangelical, kind of slappy clappy kind of person, and Tolkien's the pre-Vatican I austere Latin Mass. It's like, no, they're both liturgical, and they both have a great appreciation for the historicity of it, but also just the translation of my soul into the heavenly.
Yeah. They let the story take them where it takes them.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's a good way. Yeah, exactly.
that great story of when Lewis, and I would have loved to have heard the sermon, right? He walks out of the church at Headington Quarry and says, I've got this great idea for a book, the Screw Tape Letters.
Right. That's right. Right.
I mean, but something, again, it's the liturgy, it's the readings, it's being in that sacred space and time,
Yeah.
and hearing the sacred things, receiving the sacred gifts that just it breathes life into you, the life of Christ into you.
Do you ever do that when you're at the altar during the Sanctus? You start thinking of ideas, and you're like, no, focus. Be present.
It's happened in various. Yeah, I mean, I probably couldn't pinpoint times lately. But it's happened before. It's like, but no, what are you thinking about right now?
That's right.
Like, no,
Where am I? Oh yeah, wait.
Might be a cool story, but don't.
Not now. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get away, Holy Spirit. I'm trying to serve you better.
Yeah.
Hold that thought. So, just a side note, for the first time in 19 years, last Sunday during the sermon hymn, I exploded in laughter because one of the verses is Trump from east to west, right? And I go, and I just stood up. I apologized before I got in the pulp, and I go, that was just too on the nose not to laugh at. Like,
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta.
it's like, no, this is an Easter hymn about Jesus and his victory spreads from east to west and the angels to east to west. And then that word comes and you're like, oh, yeah, no. And it was right after the meme went up. So it's like, it was so on the nose that I'm like, we have to address this right now because this is a preaching moment. This is a teaching moment.
Absolutely. I mean, you know that half the people or more probably are thinking the same thing.
Of course.
Yeah, you gotta call it out when it's there.
Would you ever consider going deeper with this now that this is coming out? Would you ever consider going deeper with this line of writing, thinking, teaching, however you want to put it?
Yeah, that thought's crossed my mind.
Maybe it's like we've talked about Schultz's book on grief, for example.
Yeah, that's a
That
great
book that's a hard book to read.
It is very.
We read it on the show just because I couldn't read it a second time by myself. It was just
Yeah.
every paragraph you're like, I got to walk away. I can't. It's like reading Dostoevsky.
Right.
Right.
That was one of the books that, even though it's
Right.
short, it always takes me a long time to go through it.
But I was wondering, and I bring it up, sorry to interrupt, but is again going with other of Tolkien's works, like maybe the Paralander trilogy, or talking about grief at the death of it. Like, would you ever consider going more in depth with Lewis and using those again, not just catechetically but pastorally?
Sure. I mean, I think so. There's definitely there's some space for that, or there's room for that. I think there's also, I mean, a need for that. I mean, not that grief, like especially as a nasty beast, and isn't calmed or assuaged by anything really except for Christ. But stories have a way of kind of just sort of, I don't know, like seeping alongside grief and
100%, right.
saying, all right, we're gonna sit here together, and you're in your grief, and here's a story about grief.
Well,
And
that's
kinda
what we used to do that in the wakes, right? You would sit with the dead and you would tell stories. That was where the eulogy would usually happen. Was at the wake. That's why I think we have eulogies now, because we don't give people time to sit and grieve before we commit them to the earth.
Yeah.
And so therefore they bring those stories into church with them.
Yeah.
And then insist, Pastor, I want to talk. And you know what the eulogies are going to be.
Yeah.
And you as a pastor have to have that light touch of like, she's still dead. So,
Right.
you know, Pastor, why didn't you preach more about her? Well, you did a great job for the last, 20 to 30 minutes. And she was baptized, and she made me swear an oath that I wouldn't talk about her in the sermon.
Yep. Yep. Exactly.
And same thing of like a grief observed, yes, or God in the dock even to say, like I was talking about, and I'm pushing you towards this, because I want it. But I had a couple pastors last week again asked me, do I know any good books on spiritual warfare? And other than Ristow, which we've read on the show, I said in the West, there's just not a lot of those kinds of books that are what we as Lutherans would say, again, liturgical, sacramental,
Yeah.
like when you're attacked, when you're tempted, where's the objective? Where's the incarnation of Christ for you for not only forgiveness, but the new life that pours from that and the hope and the protection that comes out of that.
Right. Right.
And again, I think you kill almost two birds with one stone off the top, which is one, read Lewis. He's great.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and then
I don't-
two,
Yeah.
he's not an enemy of the Lutheran Church. He's not an enemy of our communion. He can actually accentuate and enhance it because here, right?
Right. Yeah. And here's some more. I think you're right. There's definitely some, wide open prairies to explore with that, with Lewis, and I mean even Tolkien. It'd be fun to, maybe someday do a similar kind of like Tolkien Middle Earth kind of catechism sort of
Sure.
thing.
Yeah.
Just doing, kind of taking the same idea, right? Take storytelling, take some Christian teaching, and put them together because
Yeah.
they kind of just, they want to go together, right? They're drawn magnetically to each other.
Well, and even a side note, because we've talked about this a lot on the show, which is the Jungian influence on storytelling through Joseph Campbell and his disciples in the 80s and 90s, who brought that into the church. And again, not only are you being told these stories, and biblical stories, again, Jordan Peterson's the obvious example of how he reads the Bible and then filters it all through Carl Jung. And now we have people coming out and saying he's not even a good Jungian because here are the reasons. So now you have, again, of course, you have a scholarly argument about who's more Jungian because we have to.
That's what
That
happened.
YouTube exists for this very reason. But the same thing of for you and I and others, then I can bring Lewis and Tolkien in, or we can bring in even older stories or even biblical stories and say, we can't psychologize these stories. That's not what they were told for. That's not how they were told.
Yeah.
We got to set them free from, well, I'm going to put this in my brain and then ask, well, how do I apply this to my life versus you don't tell the story tells you. You don't tell myths tell you. Again, you can talk about Jonah, but once you become Jonah, you'll call me. I always tell that to people, like, you don't need me right now. But when you're in the belly of the fish, you'll call out. You'll want me.
Yeah.
And that's my job. So that's great. But again, if I show up and we just talk versus living in the liturgy, like we talk about catechetically, like what does it mean to live liturgically? Well, let's talk about that. Let's get, as I said in the sermon last week, we love growth in the West, but we don't like depth.
Yeah.
Everything's branches, but nothing's roots versus,
True.
that's why things die according to the parable, because it didn't have roots. And so it withered and died.
Yep.
Versus, well, how do you grow deep roots? Well, the gospel is the only way I know, third article stuff. Now, how do we apply that third article to everything to bring all things captive to Christ?
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I think so. And again, I think stories are one of the great ways of doing that. This is, again, it worked for Lewis, and not just in a pragmatic way, but this was the way the Spirit come back to the gospel was, all right, I'm going to sneak around your watchful dragons too.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it through your friend. I'm going to do it through your stories. I'm going to do it, playing that big game of chess he talks about. Surprised by Joy there.
Yes.
Right? But all along, right, it's God moving the pieces along the board.
Well, and I've said this is when I was first going through my conversion, that's what everyone gave me. They gave me Mere Christianity. They gave me Surprised at Joy. That was my first introduction to, like, quote unquote Christian theology, Christian writing that didn't turn me away from Christianity. Because I just found I didn't want to read I didn't know doctrine. I didn't know the Bible. So reading those books was not helpful for me at all.
Yeah.
And then, of course, I got mature and didn't need Lewis anymore because I was, educated and erudite versus I'm always coming back. Like, I love Tolkien. I'm a student of Tolkien, but I always come back to Lewis. Like
Yeah.
Lewis is always, it's like we talked about, like Ron Hodel, who we all know.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't even talk to Ron Hodel before, like when I was introduced to Ron and his wife, we hadn't exchanged words even. And as soon as I was introduced to him, my first thought was, could you just hug me?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
just hold me and tell me everything's gonna be okay. Versus Rod, our beloved Rod. I never wanted Rod to hug me. I just wanted to talk to him
Right.
and just have him pour out the information into me.
Yeah. Like, all
Yeah,
right, just
catechize me.
do your thing. Yeah.
And for me, it's that way. Like when I want to be taught, I always just go to the professor. But when I want to be like, hey, I need a pastor, I need comfort. I need Lewis. I need that, right?
Yep.
And we even talked about that. There's a time to read The Hobbit, but then there's a time to read the Chronicles of Narnia. And sometimes you just got to go, you know what? We're going to read The Horse and His Boy.
Yep.
I need to hear that.
Yep.
And let the Holy Spirit use that. And again, bringing it back into not just catechetics, but apologetics of it's all there. It's just, we then have to pray and ask, okay, could you please explain, like in the cleaning of Eustace, like in the cleansing of the descaling, as we talked, again, you and I talked about that last year, is like the most beautiful image of Lent is being descaled.
Right.
I love that image.
Yeah.
Like Lent is just, God's just going to take a scrub brush to you and just rub it all off. And by Easter morning, you're going to be a human being again. And then Monday morning, you're just going to run back out and start buying dragon scales.
Right.
And repeat the process for the next year.
There we go. Yeah. Right. Wash, rinse, and repeat.
Right. But again, that at least for me, that's the language that feeds my soul.
Yep.
It doesn't, again, what I mean by that is the soul is your life. It's the breath of life. It's the nefesh. It's what God breathes into us that makes you different than me, so that if we're standing next to each other, someone can differentiate. That's the soul. That's not the self.
Yeah.
And when I ask my Bible class, could you please define what a self is? They all just stare at me because they realize they're like, oh, wait, I have no idea what that means. And I'm like, neither do I.
Yeah. Nobody does.
And so there are stories that will feed yourself. Like you said, those are the death stories. Those are the stories of affirmation. You're good enough. You're beautiful. You're athletic.
We got plenty of those. We got tons
plenty
of
of,
those.
and then they're always, but the moral is always, but you suck, so you should buy our product. You know,
Right.
I mean, you could be so much stronger if you drove a Ford. Like, you know, you think you're virile now. If you drink Bud Light, oh my goodness, women would be throwing themselves at you, my young man. Versus, well, no, the great stories feed your soul. So again, when you hear them, you don't run out and go, yeah, I need to be told that if I just drank this or sprayed this in my hair or hung out with these people, I could be all I ever thought I could be or more, which we know is a lie because we've all done it. We've all used Scope mouthwash and not gotten more dates. You know, no one at church is like, "Ooh, pastor, your breath." Why do you attend that church? Oh, my pastor's breath is amazing. He uses Scope mouthwash.
So good.
It's like, what do you use? Bactine? What are you doing? Versus, you got to listen to my pastor because he talks weird, but it makes sense. You know, he talks about lions and dragons and all these weird things, but I'm like, those are in the Bible, right? Like,
Right. Yeah, it's all there, right? Yeah.
even Jesus is like the ancient dragon. Like, like, oh, well, why does he talk that way?
Yeah.
Versus, the devil was in a serpent in Eden and he tempted the woman. I'm like, well, Ezekiel says he was a seraphim, which is a golden serpent who's on fire with multiple wings and is encrusted with jewels. That's hard to ignore now.
That sounds kind of dragon-like here.
Right. And you're like, why didn't they just ignore him? I'm like, dude, read the description. Like, that's impossible. He's an attention-grabbing kind of angel.
Yep.
But again, that sets children's minds on fire forever. It's like, I'm sure you've done this too, right? Where you show children an actual image of an angel, like drawn to the description, and they're like, wait, what?
Well,
You're like, that's the size of our whole village here in Webster, Minnesota. So when we sing angels, like one angel covers all of us in its shadow, and that's just one corner of the throne. So I know what you're thinking, but that's not it. Even when Gabriel shows up, the first thing is, I got to get out of here. I'm going to die.
Absolutely. I mean, talk about, just fear, right? Awe and fear inspiring until it's not, right? I mean, this is the good thing about the good angels, right? They show up, and then all of a sudden it's okay. It's like Father Christmas showing up for the Narnians. They think they're dead. It's the White Witch until it's not, and then all right, no, good news is here.
Right.
Don't be afraid. Right? Don't be
Yeah.
afraid. We've got you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's warm inside. It's fine. It's just
Mhm.
winter.
That's right. Yep. Yep.
But
Here's gift, right? Here's
where
gift.
else are you at right now? Like, what else are you doing?
At the moment, not.
It's after Easter, so
Yeah, exactly. Not much
Right,
else.
right.
as little as humanly possible, while still saying I'm super busy. Yes.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those. Yeah, like because last week, like everybody had spring break, so I took most of the week off, and we just kind of did some things as a family together, and so yeah, I don't really have any projects in the moment going on.
Hmm.
Kind of yeah, getting just day to day sort of stuff
Hmm.
at the moment there. Yeah.
Where you're at, what's the big, again, pebble in the shoe? The thing that you as a pastor hear the most often, not just inside but outside the church, the thing that's the pebble in the shoe, the trouble,
Yeah. Well,
other than the, constant blast of news.
yeah, I mean, I think that's
Hmm.
more than anything, that does seem to be part of it is just there's, I mean, I don't know, maybe to put a word on it, it's despair, right?
Mm,
It's whether it's the news
hmm.
or whether it's this or that or the other thing is happening in, family illness or,
Hmm.
or great grandma's going through this or, you know, wife or husband died from this or that member kind of thing recently. It just, yeah, just kind of, it's like, oh, this is dark, right?
Hmm.
We live in a dark world. We need, I mean, I don't know. Sometimes it kind of feels like, to use a biblical image, right, like we're always living in the valley of the dry
Yeah.
bones.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're just kind of waiting,
Do you
we're waiting
think,
for Ezekiel to come along and
is it
resurrect.
because there's more noise, or is it because that's simply like, is it being revealed to us on the kind of spiritual side of the house, the heavenly side of the house, for repentance, or is it more the noise of the culture, or is it
Yeah.
both? Like, where do you see that
Yeah, I mean, I do see
coming
it
from?
both. I do see it both. I think the noise of the culture kind of drives, or just yeah, everything. It's culture, it's life, it's work, it's
Hmm.
right. You've got all these stories, all these things being bombarded at you day in and day out, and people. I think we get along with that for a while, and then all of a
Yeah.
sudden, kind of realize, something. It might be that something happens, or it's just kind of
Hmm.
this feeling. It's like, oh, there's all this, right? There's all this stuff being launched
Yeah.
at me every day. how do I how do I deal with it? What do I do? Where does it go?
Yeah.
Where do I put it? Or how do I walk through it? Kind of thing.
Hmm.
Uh, I think I see that definitely. In both, I guess, yeah, both from kind of within and from without.
Yeah.
And I do think that's a perfect opportunity for repentance. Like, okay, well, so now we're aware of it.
Yeah.
Good. What are you going to do with it? And you
Right.
just,
Well, and yeah, repentance is the way of the world, which is towards the law, which kind
yeah,
of is driving you to despair, or repentance towards the cross,
yep.
which we're kind of hanging our sign out on on the front lawn, like, hey, there's that. But
Yeah, yeah.
we,
Which way would you like to die, right? I mean, that's
yeah,
kind of, you can die without Jesus and
yeah,
all of this stuff and have this, kind of this reverberating death and noise fill your ears, or you can die with Jesus and then guess what? He's gonna bring
yeah,
new creation, right? He's gonna raise you up.
right.
Uh, he's gonna he's gonna bring the valley of dry bones completely back to life, even better than it was.
Hmm. Well, we talk about this a lot, church historically, is that it's the things that come out of the churches that then find their way into culture, and they're Christless, they're stripped of Christ. So, like social justice, for example,
Yeah,
comes out of the churches and then strip Christ away, and you end up with social justice, which leads into what we call woke ideology, or even MAGA ideology. It's just, this is our interpretation of justice apart from Christ, or weaponized compassion, weaponized empathy. You have to love everybody and end up loving no one, and you end up pointing fingers at each other because you're not pointing at Christ. There's no focus other than just this flattened reality of, like, I thought
yeah.
you were going to heal me. Well, I thought you were going to heal me. Well, I don't have any medicine. Well, neither do. Well, what are we doing then?
What's going on? Yeah,
And so, yeah, you get that despair that not only swirls around you, but then finds its way in through the front door. Because you're like, can you heal me? I'll leave the front door open. Everybody that thinks they've got the remedy just come in. And that's why I think in the United States in particular, health and wellness is a multi-billion-dollar industry. It's like 4 to 6 billion just for health and wellness.
Yeah,
But
it's
yet the
crazy.
medical side of that, the other side of like the sickness industry, it's like triple, quadruple that much every year. Like,
Yeah.
and so it's like, well, we're obsessed with health and wellness, but we're sicker than ever.
Yep.
Just as an anecdotal example, versus the same thing, like you said, is like, well, you can have healing for a time. Jesus did that, but they still had to die. And
Right.
even those he rose from the dead still had to die. Like,
Hmm.
that's
Hmm.
how this works.
Hmm.
And so don't necessarily envy the widow's son at Nain. He still had to die a second time. And now he's like, oh, it's like when you go to the ER enough and
Hmm.
then you start thinking about going back to the ER, you start panicking because you're like, oh, that's an awful experience.
Hmm. I don't want to do that again.
Right.
Yeah.
Versus like, yeah, I already died once. It was pretty awful, actually.
Hmm.
You're like, aren't you excited to be alive? You're like, kinda.
Yeah. Right.
But, I got these religious leaders who seem to be plotting my death. And so, it's like Inspector Clouseau and Cato in the movie. Like, Cato's always hiding, waiting to attack and kill him. It's like, yeah, that's the religious leaders. So what then would be your bibliography, like your recommendations? Hey, these are the things that I could give you as your pastor, or just as your brother in Christ. These are the things I would point you to.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's been, and I've told this to many others. Psalms is good, right? I mean, obviously, any scripture is good, but I mean, go to the Psalms, right? Go to the prophets, go to the parables, um, and work your way out from there, right? Scripturally speaking.
Hmm.
But yeah, read Lewis, and not just Chronicles of Narnia. Though I find that myself too. I'll read some other stuff, and it's like I always get this itch after reading a book. Like I want to go back and I want to go back into
Right.
Narnia again. It's like,
Right. Yeah.
well, I'll go out and venture out into other books and
Hmm.
on a Louis L'Amour Western kick this last week.
Nice.
Just
Yep.
listen to that. That's great and fun in its own way too.
Yeah.
But I still find myself like, yeah, I'm hearing the horns of Elfland again,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of calling in the background. So it's like, all right, it's time to go back. And
Hmm.
so I mean, yeah, Lewis, Narnia is good. There was a couple people recently that I had told you check out the Space Trilogy, right?
Oh yeah.
Check out the Ransom Trilogy because that's kind of another area of very rich depth that
Hmm.
is not unappreciated, but just underappreciated. It's just not as well known. And the third book's a little more challenging to get into than
Hmm.
Narnia books, but don't let that stop you. You read it a few times or listen to it too, right?
Yeah.
Audiobooks have a nice way to help do that too.
I think they're all on Spotify actually,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
Apple
and
Podcasts, so easy
with
to access.
Tolkien, you can even listen to the stuff by Andy Serkis reads it. That's
Yeah.
fantastic. That's like
Yeah.
that's I mean that's better than watching a movie,
Yeah.
hands down. So the Lewis, the Tolkien, the Chesterton kinds of things, or any just good stories that do that. I recently told somebody about I don't know if you guys read any of the Green Ember stories.
No.
Those are really good. Talking rabbits,
Hmm.
uh, mythical world, but a Christian writer and one who
Hmm.
understands eucatastrophe and one who understands the Lewis and Tolkien just philosophy
Yeah.
of like, okay, I'm a Christian, I'm going to write a good story, and oh, by the way, you're going to get all these themes kind of woven into it. The Wingfeather Saga had that stuff in it too. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one also.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's kind of often where I point people. And if they like more of the logical, critical thinking kind of things, like, all right, pick up Mere Christianity because
Hmm.
you're gonna get doctrinal teaching alongside kind of Lewis's just sitting with Grandpa around the fire, kind of talking
Yeah.
vibe to it. So you're gonna get good stuff no matter what there. Yeah.
Well, you brought it up, so now we're going to address it. Explain eucatastrophe for listeners and
Sure.
why it's the most important thing that Tolkien ever wrote about,
Oh,
probably.
beautiful. I mean, there's a lot of great things that Tolkien said and did, but that's probably one of the best in my mind anyway. Yeah, being a philologist, right? He can't help himself to create.
Hmm.
I think Lewis was the one that said he lives in words, right?
Yeah.
He lives in the world of words,
Yeah.
which is just a perfect way to describe it because that's the way
Hmm.
he thought and wrote, and
Hmm.
that's where Middle Earth comes from is the language.
Yeah.
And so he's trying to describe the way he defines it. The eucatastrophe is the good catastrophe, right, or the opposite of the discatastrophe. But it doesn't exclude pain or poignancy, right? It just it's the turn. It's when you don't expect anything good to happen, and then all of a sudden it does.
Right.
It can't be contrived, he says too. It's just it happens naturally, or it doesn't. And we can all point to stories where authors or movie writers have tried to make it and it doesn't work. But you can think of a lot of good examples where it does work really well. I mean, and so he describes in his own book, right, in the Lord of the Rings, that when the eagles come and rescue Sam and Frodo, I mean, they think they're dead. They're done. Lava's flowing around them. The mountain's crumbling. And that's it. Right? Their food and water are gone. They are surely, and then the eagles come, and this is that turn. Just when you think everything is death and destruction, all right, now you've got life, and you're saved, and you're back in Elrond's house, and you're back in the fields of Carmelen, and you're safe. Right. You're sound. You're whole.
That'd be a great conversation when evangelicals want to talk about the rapture, and you go, I don't believe in any of that. That's not biblical. But anyways, there's these eagles actually.
Right. Yeah.
When Rainier goes up, the eagles will save us.
Lord, let it last night angels come, right, to Abram's bear me home.
That's right.
Something very, very biblical there.
I like it.
It's Jonah in the belly of the fish.
Yeah.
It's Jesus in the tomb. It's Lazarus 4 days dead.
Now you tell me that. I needed that last weekend. I could have done eucatastrophe out of the belly of the fish. Damn it.
It's the way that it's the way the gospel works, and then Tolkien goes on to say this is the way that the good fairy story, the good story works too. It brings you this eucatastrophe. It brings you from what looks like certain utter total destruction into new creation, right? into joy and hope. It's not just the right. It's kind of that word shalom too, right? It's not just the ending hostility, but it's also the creation of something new and better. Right?
Yeah.
That what we gain in Christ is better than what we lost in Adam. That the new Jerusalem that comes down out of heaven is better than the Eden we came from, and yet we all long for it. Right? Tolkien says that too, right? We're soaked with this sense of Eden and exile.
Yeah.
And eucatastrophe is what brings us from exile into something new, something better. And his stories have it. Lewis's stories have it too. And you'll once you kind of see that and think, oh yeah, all right, you see it in other stories as well. You see it in you see it in our world too, right?
Yeah. Well, actually, you just brought up Emmaus. Like, where are you going?
Yeah,
we're going home. Why? Well,
we had hope, right?
We had hope. He's like, well, let's stop at this bar. We'll, grab us some po' boys and a couple beers. We'll buy some pull tabs and just hang out and just, you can talk about your woes to me.
Yep.
And then in the breaking of the po' boy, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, exactly.
I had a widow on Wednesday morning at Bible class talk about how she met her husband in a bar. And she goes, not the most godly place. I go, yeah, it is, because you met your husband there. And you were married until your death, and you went to church and raised your children in the faith. You'll notice the one place in the Gospels Jesus isn't allowed to hang out is in the temple. He's always meeting people at the worst possible places. Yeah. So I'm like, no, the most godly place to meet your husband would be a bar, because God knows what's happening in the church.
Oh, this is perfect. Yeah, this is a picture of table fellowship. Right?
Well, it's like you said, the Holy Spirit will work around your dragons. He doesn't. He doesn't care about them.
Yep.
As God says to Job, I play with them. They're just puppies to me. It's fine.
That's right. Yep. And where were you? Oh, yeah, that's right.
Are there any influences on Lewis that you particularly kind of are provoked by, that kind of draw you back?
Yeah, I mean, so Chesterton was a little bit of an influence on him, as well as Tolkien. And I have not read it nearly as much as I would like, but George MacDonald was another big. Fantasies was the one that he really pointed to and said, all right, this is the story that baptized my imagination. But he's, George MacDonald shows up in The Great Divorce as the character, which is the conversation is amazing. That's a great segment in that book. I think those are the two. There's a lot of others, but those are the two big ones that come to mind. That at least that I go back to, or at least try to go back to. Like, okay, if there's something I'd like to read more that's in that in that Inklings world, or kind of their pre-world, right, their origin story. It's like, all right, that sounds fun. I'll go check that out, or even just like going to the Grimm's fairy tales, or both Lewis and Tolkien also liked Andrew Lang's collection of fairies.
The fairy books. Yeah, green, blue, purple. Yeah.
And who's the other guy? Edmund Spencer, right? Another big influence there. So those are always fun and fascinating to read too, because you just kind of scroll along, you're like, oh, hey, it's like,
Right.
and you can go back even further, right, to the you can go back to Anglo-Saxon stuff,
Yep.
Beowulf for Tolkien, right?
Hmm.
That was a
What
big
was
thing.
it for Lewis? What were the big kind of medieval, early medieval texts that Lewis kind of resonated with?
That's a
Do you
great
know?
question. I'm trying to think off the top of my head if I can remember one.
He's not as, at least in my reading, he's not as overt as Tolkien with those things, but he's still,
No, he's definitely in there. I mean, he was
yeah,
the medieval that well he that's always funny, right? It's like you're calling me the chair as medieval Renaissance literature, but there's no such thing as the Renaissance.
yeah, right. That's right.
I
Step
always love
one, get rid of chair. Yes,
I
that's
always
right.
love that about him. Like, okay, yeah, but trying to think. I mean, a few of the guys I already mentioned, but those aren't quite medieval. More.
Hmm.
I mean, a lot of the Anglo-Saxon stuff.
Yeah.
Go back to the Norse mythology. That was
No.
that was huge. Especially, I mean, he mentions Balder
Yeah,
and
sure.
that a few times.
The Icelandic sagas,
Mhm.
probably stuff like that.
And those were two of the
Yeah.
things that drew those guys together.
Yeah.
In a way. I know there's others that are escaping my mind at the moment.
Well, it's like you said. When I was reading MacDonald because of Lewis, I just
Mhm.
kept thinking about how much I wanted to read Lewis explain to me what MacDonald was writing. I'm like,
Totally.
this is fine, but
Hmm.
I think Lewis does him better. Like,
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. There was an anthology of George MacDonald quotes that Lewis edited.
mm,
It came out with
oh,
state kind of packaging stuff. I don't know how much
really?
actually had his hands in it,
Huh.
but and it was just kind of, yeah, just a collection of quotations. And I found myself thinking the same thing. Like, all right, I really wish Lewis had actually written about this instead of just having it kind of
Hmm.
I get probably collected by Walter Huber.
Oh, sure. Okay.
Together, kind of with, okay, this is an influence on Lewis, so
Yeah.
let's have it out there, kind
I
of deal.
would recommend if you want to have a fun time and be subversively rebellious, replace books in your church library with Lewis, for example. Like
Yeah,
buy
it's good.
his stuff and put it in your church library.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's fun.
Because I can't remember which pastor I had, but he did a whole Bible class on the Great Divorce, like a series on the Great Divorce, and just had people
Yeah,
reading it.
yeah. Another one that Lewis did that influenced Don Treader a lot was it Brendan the Navigator.
Mm,
I forget who wrote that now, but
Hmm. Right.
that was another big piece of kind of earlier literature. There was a book too that somebody came out with recently, and it was sort of written on like Lewis's 10 favorite books, and I forget who wrote that.
hmm.
The name of it was.
I have my
Um,
iPad in front of me, so
yeah, there you go.
let me look
And
it
there was
up.
another one I think it was Holly Ordway wrote about Tolkien, and he's often known as a medievalist, which is
Yeah.
true and obvious and right. But she also said that he was very widely read in modern literature as well. And I forget the name of that book, but that was by Holly Ordway, and she did a good
Okay.
job. Um, she also wrote a really good spiritual biography on Tolkien, which is dynamite.
Huh.
It's a really good book, and that kind of explores his, mainly his Christian faith, kind of as that's the again that's the kind of the guiding light, if you will, on the life of Tolkien. Not so much the biographical details, though those
Yeah.
come up, but it's more like, okay, this is what drove Tolkien
Right.
was his faith.
So it
And
is called C.S. Lewis's List: The 10 Books That Influenced Him Most. Came out in
that's the
2015
yep,
by David Werther and Susan Werther. They
yeah,
edited it.
yep, that's it.
That's the one. So
That's it. Yeah, yeah. That's a fun read and gives you a good window into what was rolling around in
hmm
his head, right? Because like we've talked about, everybody's got stories rolling around their head, and your head is going to be filled with something, so you might
hmm
as well fill it with something good, because that's going to be what you spit back out.
hmm here, thank you, bloggers. Here's C.S. Lewis's reading list that he recommends: Fantasies by George MacDonald,
Yeah, yeah,
The Everlasting Man by Chesterton.
Hmm.
That's a must
yeah,
read. The Aeneid by Virgil.
yep,
The Temple by George Herbert. The Prelude by William Wordsworth. The Idea of the Holy by Rudolph Otto.
yes, that's right. He mentions that a few times in multiple books and
Okay.
letters. Yeah,
The Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius. The Life of Samuel Johnson by James Boswell. Samuel Johnson put together the first English dictionary, actually, before Oxford.
yeah, yeah,
It's a
yeah.
fun one. I have it. Yeah, I have that one. It's
Hmm,
fantastic. If you want to buy a fun book, Samuel Johnson's dictionary is
hmm.
outstanding. Descent into Hell by Charles Williams. and Theism and Humanism by Arthur James Balfour. That's a name that you don't hear very much anymore, but at the time, he was very popular. So there you go. That's a pretty wide and broad.
Inklings too was Samuel Taylor Coleridge.
Oh yeah.
Again, not medieval by any chance, Romantic era, but he was influential in their storytelling, their kind of understanding of imagination as well. It's he's a fun guy.
Was
to read.
Sayers a big influence on him too? Dorothy Sayers?
A little bit. They definitely chatted a lot and knew each other a lot.
Did she go after him with her radio addresses or before him? Which one was it?
Oh, that's good. I think it was after.
Okay. I had just recently read a historical article about how much she was attacked for those at the time.
Yeah, big time.
Like, how dare you, a woman, go on the radio and say these things?
Yeah, and write the things she wrote, or kind of what are you doing in theology kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
But she's fantastic. I mean, she's an outstanding mystery writer just on her own right. The Man Who Would Be King, or The Man Born to Be King, is fantastic. Yeah. Lewis said that he read that every Lent and Holy Week. I think it was
no kidding.
Yeah, he'd go through and he'd read that again.
We listened to the BBC version.
Awesome. And her introduction to that is really good too. I mean, I picked up the book because it was Sayers, and it's like, oh, okay, well, I like Sayers, and she's Inklings adjacent, and she's fantastic just by being her. I got to read this, and I did not realize that she wrote this amazing, really apologetic introduction to that drama and play along with it. So this is fantastic. I expected just a play, but I get this great defense of the faith along with it. This is amazing. She's definitely worth checking out too, because I mean, had she been male, she might have been a member of the Inklings, but she was definitely good friends with them, and they knew her.
The Man Born to Be King, that's the name of it.
Yep.
The Man Who Would Be King is a Rudyard Kipling story.
Right,
that was made into an awesome movie starring Sean Connery and Michael Caine, which I've referenced on the show before, because in the story, not to spoil it, but they become gods basically. They're worshipped as gods, and the way that it's revealed that they're not gods is because one of the girls that's being exploited by them bites him, and he bleeds, and they're like, not a god. Yeah. And I was like, there you go.
There it is.
But the Man Born to Be King is a fantastic book. It's so good.
Yeah.
And as you said, yes, had she been a man at that time, possibly would have gotten better press, but definitely worth checking out and putting in your church library.
Yeah, for sure. And there was a book I was reading during it was early part of Lent. I think it was called The Gospel. Was it The Gospel? Not according to Dorothy Sayers, but it was along those kind of lines. It basically, the author just took and collected a whole bunch of different quotes from her novels and articles, and from a lot of stuff from Mind of the Maker, and organized it by different theological themes. So like grief and
The Gospel in Dorothy Sayers.
That's the one. Yep. Yeah, that's really good too. Kind of a good, if you're not familiar with Sayers, that's kind of a good little entry point, a little gateway to her. But any of her mystery novels are saturated with the Christian faith too, because that's also who she was.
Oh my goodness, they have collections according to decades of her stuff. Like,
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's fun. Yeah.
She has a book called Creed or Chaos.
That's really good too.
Is it?
That and Mind of the Maker are kind of two. They're more theological than they are narrative. But she's brilliant.
A theological argument demonstrating why Christian doctrine is essential to faith, warning that abandoning dogma leads to chaos in both religious and secular spheres.
Yeah.
Which actually is a callback to what we were discussing earlier in this conversation of you have nothing to take into the culture with you.
Right.
You don't live liturgically. You don't live into your baptism. The catechetical language isn't there. I think of Norman MacLean talks about this in Young Men in Fire, which I brought up on the show too, but In a River Runs Through It, the Geneva Catechism is everywhere in that story because his father was a preacher and he grew up with that language. And so even as an adult who had left the church, the language of doctrine, the language of the creeds, the language of the faith that he grew up with, he couldn't escape it. It was just part of his lexicon. And so when he's trying to understand the death of his brother, he goes deeper and deeper into that childhood language that he learned because he has no words as an adult to explain, like, why my brother but not me? Why did he go left and I went right? And what did we have? We had that moment in the river where we were all fishing. And that was it. That was the last time he ever talked to his brother. And again, I think going back to matters of grief, like we talked about, of despair, you have to have stories that are eucatastrophic, of literally like, here, I've got a story that has hope at the end.
Yep.
The one thing you're missing in what you just told me is hope.
Yep.
I train with a friend of mine at the gym as a doctor, and we were talking last week about like a good storyteller, like a good preacher, has to listen more than he talks. And then he's like, doctor, like as a doctor, as I get older and more seasoned, I just come in and go, so how you doing today? And then I just shut up.
Right.
Because they will tell me how I need to treat them.
Yeah.
Whereas when he was younger, he's like, okay, I can see from the way that you walk, and I can hear in your voice, this is your problem.
Yeah.
And when you're young and inexperienced, you have that kind of one size fits all approach to problems.
Yep.
Right. But after your first funeral, actually for your second funeral, thinking it's going to be just like the first funeral, and it's not, and you realize, the textbook wise, that the book just gets thrown in the corner, because this is a funeral, this is grief, this is a certain cry. Because you have some funerals where they're celebratory, because they're like, we're just so glad that the dementia is now at an end and we can all rest with her, versus the other side of it of, what do we do? I don't know what to do. Like, how am I supposed to go on without him? Like, what do we do here?
Yeah.
And again, for me as a pastor, I fall back on those images rather than fall back on, quote unquote, my experience. I fall back on these powerful images of hope, because I have nothing. I have nothing to bring to the table.
Right, exactly. It's like you've got to come with something, and if it's going to be you, Lord help us, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. And maybe I knock it out of the park. Maybe I hit a grand slam. But tomorrow, 10 years from now, at the moment of your death, I'm not going to be there. Possibly, I'm not going to be there to wow you with my eloquence or my oratory. So what can I feed you? What can I give to you that is a blessing, that you can reflect on and say, even if I have no connection to the church and don't really believe in God, what that pastor said to me, and the images that he downloaded into me, touched, like, it spoke to my heart, spoke to my soul, not just my brain.
Yep.
Because the brain leans towards theory and the heart leans towards encounter, and pastorally, that's what we're about.
Yep.
But I find there's such a, Gillespie's talked about the spiritual starvation, because we're just it's pablum. It's not even milk. It's not mother's milk. It's pablum.
Yeah.
It's soy-based, preserved product, give child, versus actual mother's milk. And Martin Shaw talks about how you used to breastfeed on stories in the old days, because the mothers would literally just feed you stories through their breast milk. And now, both physically and spiritually, we don't do that. And I think that's the catechesis part of this, coming back to your book too, is, for me, that's what catechesis is. It's teaching your child how to chew for the first time, basically. Like, okay, you've grown up on milk, but now here's a cookie, or here's a carrot stick.
We're going to take this, we're going to take this, and Yeah,
and catechesis is, first of all, what is this? It's called a fork. I don't like using them. You don't like using them. But you're going to be at a dinner party eventually where you're going to have to use a fork. So let's talk about, how do you use a fork?
Yep.
How do you chew, right?
Yep.
As you say to your pets all the time, chew, then swallow, and you won't choke.
Right.
Right.
Yep.
But how many times do we, in Farsi, there's this beautiful word called nafs, N-A-F-S. It means the greedy soul. And so the Sufi poets will constantly talk in their prayers, especially these psalmic prayers. They'll pray against their greedy soul, because that's against the direction of the soul, which is intended to go back to its maker, to its love, first love. And so the nafs is, I'm hungry for temporary pleasure. Like anything that's temporary that comes along is like, look at me, eat me, see me. We're like, that'll satisfy, that'll fill me. And then God comes along and goes, here, eat this, and it will satisfy. And you're like, I've got wine at home. I've got wine down this, like, what's the difference between, this wine was made before Adam. I'm like, that just means it's old and vinegary.
This is living. Yeah.
Yeah.
You have some living water here.
Yeah, right. Versus, what if I gave you wine that healed your addiction? What if I gave you wine that gave you peace? What if I gave you wine that raised you from the dead?
Yeah.
Would you be interested then? And again, I think the lack of mythic language and imagery, which is there in the Bible, it's not like we have to import it.
No,
I think that's the problem, is that
yeah.
the mythic imagery in the Bible, again, once it's stripped of the heavenly truth, once it's stripped of Christ and the incarnation, it does become myths in search of like a birth, a death, like a real one, not, hey, Jesus is just like Horus, or Jesus is just like God or Goddess X. It's like, but Jesus was actually born. Again, as Tolkien says, it's the greatest fairy story because it's true. And I think that's the problem that I especially hear this with Christians today, going back to the beginning of our conversation, which is, but those are just fairy tales. I'm like, they are until Jesus is added to them. And then you realize this fairy tale has been hunting for its authors the whole time. And now that they've been reunited, boom, like look at the explosion of joy, and there's angels singing, and now there's hope and life in this story.
Right.
But the fact that, especially in the churches, we become so numbskulled to the stories that we go, well, no, those are not Christian stories, so therefore they don't have any place in the church, especially not your preaching or teaching, Pastor. What are you doing? Right.
Right. Yep.
And so, again, go after that, like chew on that of, well, yeah, the effect of modern evangelicalism on storytelling even is like, you can read Lewis not as a Christian and still love it, and you can read Lewis not as a liturgical Christian and still love it. But
Yeah.
again, you've got the branches, but the roots themselves have just not gone as deep as they could.
Yeah. Yeah. You gotta keep following that trail. Right? Go down to the source. Yeah.
Well, even Jesus, right? You could say to the mountain, throw yourself into the ocean, and it would if you had faith like a mustard seed.
Yeah.
And you live in, like you said, you can see Mount Rainier. And if you say to your catechists, hey, do you know the roots of the mountain? Have you ever seen the roots of a mountain before? That the trees themselves latch their roots onto? Like, can you imagine just trying to uproot a mountain and throw it away? The kids immediately be like, that's the dumbest thing we've ever heard.
You sound crazy, Pastor.
Yeah. Okay, now let's take a trip, and I'm going to show you this mining company that is trying to uproot this mountain. Or like in Oregon, when I lived out there, they would clear cut one side of the mountain.
Yep.
And then go the other next year, they clear cut the other side.
Yep.
And you're like, this, I don't think this makes sense. I don't think the other side of the mountain grew back in the past year.
Yep.
Children get that innately. They're just like, I don't think that's long enough. It's like, well, but we can force them to grow. And as they grow, we can harvest them. And who was it who said it? There's no, Barry said it. There's no value in a tree unless you can sell it, until you sell it. Until you sell a tree, it has no value. And it's like, yeah, that's the whole world. Like, nothing in our world has any value until we can sell it.
Yeah, it's just a product. It's,
And that's why the cup has no appeal to people, because it's free. It's there every Sunday for a lot of churches, and therefore there's no value in that. I can get it whenever I want.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. You can't buy, sell, trade. It's like, no.
Yeah.
This is the place of gift.
Right.
And that's what good stories do too, right? They're giving you the gifts
Yeah.
over and over and over again, image after image, after scene after scene.
Well, and ultimately, they're going to lead you back up the mountain to the gates of paradise to say, this, again, we're in search of our author, and it's not you. So then we as Christians say, yeah, I'm in search of my author too, actually.
Yep.
This is why we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago. When you read the Sufi poets from the 13th and 14th century, they're being exposed to Syriac Christianity, the Peshitta. And that's their reference points for Christians. And then the Sufis themselves were assumed into Islam. They didn't join. They were assumed into it. And because the Sufis believe that God doesn't have a specific name and that all holy places are holy, regardless of whether it's a mosque or a temple or an ashram or a church, for the sake of peace, they're just like, yeah, fine, we're Muslims now. Fine, whatever. Because of that reason. But they never fully embraced it. It was other than anybody who's a modern Muslim will tell me that I'm lying, because I've read the comment sections on Instagram. But my point is that I find that the 13th century Sufi poets are closer to the kingdom than modern Christians in many instances, because they're obsessed with God is love. God made us to be in communion with each other and with him. You're like, okay, the law. But then they're going deeper into this almost psalmic confession of penance, for example, where they're asking God, and they're citing Jonah and Joseph, they're citing the prophets. And I'm looking at this going like, these guys are so much closer to the door than I am on a lot of the days, because they're focused on one thing, which is the big picture, which is like, I know this isn't where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
And so where am I supposed to be? And again, like you noted earlier, and Gerhard Ferde taught me this, which is You can live the Christian faith 80% of the time under the law. But that other 20% when the crisis comes, you have nothing left. There's nothing left except gritted teeth.
Yeah.
And I see that with those who are outside the faith, who are, you read them and you go like, oh, you're like the noble savage, or or the noble pagan, the medieval thing, right?
Yeah.
The righteous pagan, like Virgil in Dante.
Right.
And you're like, God, you're so close to the kingdom. You're so close, but you just couldn't. You didn't have a preacher. You couldn't get your foot over the door for whatever reason. So again, I think from the storytelling side of the house, when you have that as a Christian, there's a place there for them at the table. Versus, no, you're wrong, you're bad, you're not Christian, so therefore you don't have anything to give us. Versus Gollum. Like it's just, it's like actually Gollum has the most contribute to what's happening right now if you just listen to him.
Yeah.
And realize he's plotting your downfall because he wants the ring.
Right.
But again, what is that ring? Again, wrapped around the human heart, what is that ring? And then can I use that as an image? Well, you have a ring wrapped around your finger. You're married. Oh, interesting. Or, oh, you like to wear jewelry. Why do you wear jewelry? Like, what's the symbolism of that within the context of, hey, look at this story has a ring. Well, that story has a ring too. So now how does that apply to the Christian faith? Like, how can I bring that in? And again, like Paul says, take it captive to Christ.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, that's what he's doing in Athens, right? Oh, I see you guys are very religious.
Right.
By the way, here's a whole bunch of your poets that I'm going to quote back to you. And
right.
Totally,
and like we've talked about, the first three bishops of Athens were there that day.
Yeah.
They talk about it. They're like, we were converted by Paul at the Areopagus.
Yeah.
And you're like, but Paul didn't catechize you first, and he didn't explain the 3 points of the creed. And how did that happen? It's like, well, we heard him, we were convicted, and then we went and found a priest and asked more questions and were catechized into the faith.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, is that how that works? That's so interesting.
Fascinating.
Yeah, but that's what I mean, because you have a background in apologetics, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, just with I mean, I was a student of Rod's at Irvine, and once I took one class with him, I took every class I could with him.
Right. Yep.
So that kind of became the thing to do there. So
do you find I know because you're a pastor, nobody talks to you outside of church on Sunday, but when the rare unicorn prances through town, is like, hey, I'll talk to you, you're a pastor.
Yeah.
Same thing on the other side of it. Do you find it's, I don't know if easier or more effective because you have this well to draw out of, that you can kind of converse a little bit more easily with people with big questions?
Sure, it certainly helps. I mean, just there's that. Part of the strength of apologetics is just giving the person, the Christian, like the confidence to know that it's like, okay, this is what you know what you believe and why you believe it, and there's some definite reasons for it. So I mean, just on itself, that's important. But the other thing too is that it gives you a place to draw from. Right? Like you said, a well. It gives you a cup to pour out. It's like, okay, I don't have anything on my own, but here's here's, if it's somebody that's more like logically driven, like, all right, here's this argument, or 10 arguments if you want 10. I can give you those, right? Or if they're more on the creative other side of the brain kind of stuff, is like, well, all right, great, let's look at some artwork, or let's listen to Bach, right? Or let's pull out Lord of the Rings or Chronicles of Narnia or something and say, all right, here's a beautiful moving story. Now, why is it doing that? What's making it tick?
It's during Lent, I started telling the story of Iron John to my confirmand, because we're kind of done with catechisms. Like, for the rest of the year, I'm going to tell you this story, unless you want me to. You get bored, and we'll do a different one. Well, And so I started telling. And for those who don't know, Iron John is a Grimm's folktale originally. Robert Bly extrapolated upon it, published it in the 90s. It was an international bestseller. Actually, really kicked off the original men's movement. The good one, not the toxic later, like these weekend warrior situations that we have today. But like legitimately, like men need a place to grieve, for example. That was why it was started. Like men need a place to be with men, to grieve as men. And also we're going to introduce you to poetry and mythology, and we're going to have a conversation again around these topics because men don't do this. And so that's how Bly was like, this is how we can bring men in and give them a place to talk. Again, we're looking for communion. We're looking for confession and absolution. We're looking for good news. But we also aren't Christians. We don't want to go. So we'll just make our own thing over here. Again, it's like you have all of, and actually, interestingly, towards the end of his life, then Bly kind of turned the men's movement into He started bringing in more mystics, more religious talkers, more people that wanted to deal with death and resurrection, or death and life and grief, and it became more religious, actually more theological than it had been early on. Because of course, as death begins to flirt with you, you get more serious about it. And you're like, oh, because it's like, this isn't a courtship. I don't know if you're aware of this. Like, I've chosen you. And you're like, you're like, I don't want to go out on a date. It's like, you don't have a choice. But to the point then of what happens is, I'm telling this, and all of my confirmands are girls, actually. They're all girls, but the story is innately a male story. It's actually for men, because it's about a boy and a wild man, the puer and the senex. And it's literally about going from being a boy to being a man. So I was like, I don't know if these girls are going to go for this, but I'll tell it, until Easter. And then after Easter, we've been in it 4 times. They can tell me, hey, let's go back to girly stories. Nope. Every one of them after Easter was like, you will finish this story, even if we have to come to confirmation in the summertime. And I thought, again, that's so interesting that I'm, on the surface, this is a male story about male rites of passage. And yet I have 6 girls ages 7 to 12 who are like, you will finish this story because we are all in. And when I talk to the parents about this, and I think it's kind of funny when I talk about it, I'm like, but the truth of the story isn't male. It's not masculine. Yeah. The truth is, when you're a child and you have to become an adult, what's happening? What's the pattern, right? And the girls are just dialed in. They're like, yeah, it's a prince and a wild man, but it's not really about the prince and the wild man. I'm like, well, tell me more about this, because I thought you weren't going to like this. And then the girls teach me, again, what the story is telling them. Yeah. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh, well, that's beautiful. Because I have a woman I sponsor. I gave her Parsival and the Grail legend. I said the same thing. This is a very masculine story about knights and maidens and Grail stories and jousting. And she's like, this is the best story I have ever heard in my life. Awesome. I'm like, well, it's interesting because it's about a knight and a boy coming in. And she's like, I guess, but there are all these women in the story that I'm like, Herzeloida and Sagoon and all these women, and she's like, no, I'm all in on this story, because she's like, also as a sober person, she's like, the chivalric way is such a great, like, this is sobriety right here. I'm like, tell me more about that. And she tells me, I'm like, oh, again, I'm on a subtextual level with it. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm totally reading it that way too, but I hadn't paid attention to it. And again, because I'm long-winded and I like to wander, like your Van Gogh painting, just swirlies, just blue and yellow swirls. I think that's what was missing for me anyways, is when I'm teaching, but I want more meat, and I want to be able to give the confirmands or the Sunday school kids more than just, here's information, and you need to know this because this is a Christian faith. It's, on the one hand, it's, yes, you do have to know this. This is the Christian faith. But also, this is a distillation of faith. This is a distillation of what Scripture teaches. That's what the Catechism is. That's why Luther can quote the Scriptures and say, in Matthew 28 it says this, or in Titus 3 it says that. This is why we believe this about baptism. Okay, great. Now, how do you live your baptism in your life? What is a vocation? And we've talked about that in relation to the table of duties. Like, what do you owe your mom and dad, or what do you owe your pastor? But then on top of that, or after that, I guess, as a consequence of that, what's the body? Where's it embodied at? And that language of blessing, of filling, of, okay, I want to give you something so that when you leave here, it travels with you. And it's not something you have to remember. And now that I'm talking about it out loud and thinking it out loud, I think this is the problem with memorization, is you're taking control of the text and saying, I memorized it, I passed, I'm done. Versus, well, how does the text take a hold of you? How do you live inside the Christian faith? How do you live inside dogma in such a way that it's not, well, I have to memorize this to pass a test, versus, no, this is just the language of my life. This is the language that helps explain reality to me.
And I think that's what stories do, right? They teach you reality. They show you what's real, right? What's true. What's good and beautiful. Point to the other transcendental. And I mean, that's what the Catechism does too, which is why they make such a good combo. Just doing it in 2 different ways, but you put them together, and
which brings us back to liturgy, because as you noted, if liturgy is reality, the real world, then the liturgy itself is telling you a story. It's a pretty good one, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Because the first words are in the name of,
Yep.
to name your baptism, ends
Yep.
with your baptism, and everything in between is just,
Yeah.
and this is why Jesus baptizes you.
Right. Right. Yep.
I
Yep.
wish, in a way, because we've talked about this in Bible class, the divine service for the baptized, which is what the early church called it, which was the liturgy of the baptized, which is why you had to leave before the sacrament.
Right.
I would love that to be the name, so that when you walk into church on Sunday, or you open the paper or whatever, check online, it's like, this Sunday we celebrate the divine service of the baptized, or for the
Yeah.
baptized, so that people are like, what's that about?
But
Well,
what's that?
that's
what this is. Yeah.
Was ist das.
Yeah. Like, this is what you're here for. This is, yeah. This is life. Right.
Yeah. For me, anyways, on my side of the camera, that's, I think, where I've been led is how, like you said, in a world that seems just overwhelmed by just darkness, despair,
Yeah.
and everything they talk about leads back to that topic in one way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
How, when they walk through the doors, are we actually serving our neighbor? Not just to lift up our congregation, but to lift up those outside of it, to say,
Yeah.
our children, especially in where I'm at with young men and boys, is they're not coming to church, and here's what they're telling me. And so how do we bridge that? Is there a bridge there already? We just gotta, fix it up. Or is there no bridge? Do we burn it off? And there's nothing. Where is that touch? Where is that overlap? So that when my kids leave church, whether they be my biological children or my spiritual children, and I let them go and I pass, what have I left them with? So that they can communicate their faith in a way that is organic and natural, and not, well, I remember that from somewhere, versus, well, actually, da 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 da, and they can just kind of rattle off the language of the liturgy.
Yep.
Which, again, consistency, repetition in an organic sense, not just memorize this.
No. Yeah, living in it, right? Letting let it become part of you.
Well, I think that's why so many churches got rid of memorization, because it was such a torment for them, and they recognize our recidivism with this is astronomical. So we'll just get rid of it, the catechism. We'll just get rid of confirmation and just make it about a faith statement, or you write a poem or something, versus that's not making anything better by simply getting rid of all standards.
Yeah.
But like I said, you still have to learn the language of the faith. You still have to learn what we believe, teach, and confess.
Yep.
But then how do we embody that? How do we incarnate that, or at least bring the children into this is where it's embodied, this is where it's incarnate. What's that? What's incarnate mean? Let's talk about that, right?
Right, yeah.
In the language of, well, think of if you had a whole congregation of Mr. and Mrs. Beavers, what would that congregation look like, right? Versus, what if everybody in your church was an Edmund, or on one side it was Edmund, but on the other side it was Lucy? Like, what kind of a church would that be? And it's kind of like, again, going through the 7 churches in Revelation, and what if each one of these churches was this character, one of these characters?
Right, yeah.
And then going, well, that's, again, now all of a sudden we're inside the church of Ephesus, or the church at Smyrna. And going like, well, now that you put it that way, mythically, now I could see why that would be a problem. Well, you're lukewarm. Well, what the hell does that mean?
Right, yeah.
And then you explain it narratively, and then all of a sudden it's like, I'm lukewarm.
Yeah.
Okay, now what are we going to do about that? Well, what does he say? Right? Where is your first love?
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of Revelation, is Aslan's front and center in the book of Revelation.
It's so rich in imagery and in the language and the symbolism of it. It's one of the reasons why it's at the same time. It's like, okay, this is the most frustrating book to read, but it's also the most beautiful and comforting to read too.
Well, I think for me, I was always told, right, it's unfathomable. You should never read this. Definitely don't do Bible classes on it, because everybody's influenced by Left Behind, or they're going to bring in, post millennialism, blah 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 blah, millennialism. And I'm like, well, if you read the Chronicles of Narnia, actually, it kind of just gives you like the large catechism entry point to read Revelation. After that, read Voyage of the Dawn Treader, and then read the end of Revelation. You're like, okay, got it.
All right,
I'm done.
This sounds like I'm walking in the same water here. Yeah.
Right. It's like, well, the virgin on the dragon kind of thing. You're like, well, I don't understand that, Pastor. But somehow if I read it over here and then we come back into it, you're like, oh, now it's like, what changed?
Yeah.
Well, this is a fairy tale and this is the Bible. I'm like, but You're not seeing the pattern there. You're not seeing the connection points.
Yep.
And again, I think that's the thing of a good story disarms because it allows you to be in it. And you're the kind of, again, you're not the main character. You're not even one of the supporting characters necessarily.
Right. No, you're just, you're in it. And you're I don't know, you're along for the ride.
Yeah.
Picks you up, carries you along with you.
Right. Well, again, it's like stupid Edmund is like, you're in the sleigh with him right now. Like, so really, you're like, let's just skip ahead to chapter 6. I don't want to read about this anymore. Right. Which is what I do with George R.R. Martin stories. Like, where's Tyrion come back again? Chapter 10? Let's just skip everything and go to chapter 10.
Yes.
Versus with Voyage of the Dawn Treader, you're like, I keep like every paragraph. I'm like, stop, highlight, pause, reflect.
Yep.
Think, like, I'll be back in a month, and then go. It's like, yeah, children's story. Yeah, absolutely, sure.
Sure. Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Just
okay. Like my favorite character is Reepicheep of all the books. Reepicheep's my favorite character.
He's fantastic.
Which is he is the Muad'Dib actually of the Narnia Chronicles.
Yeah. Definitely is.
He's the good version of Paul Atreides. Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go.
He's fantastic. Yeah, he's the. I mean, he reminds me of. He kind of reminds me of a Saint Paul sort of figure. He's like,
right.
Like imitate the faith here. Like,
right. But it's such an absurd image to use a mouse being the bravest of the knights, and you're like, this.
It's wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, and then again, it's such a deep symbol once you kind of sit with it. Like, well, wait a minute, he's a mouse, but he's also the bravest of all of them. And so, why did he put those two images together? I got to think about that now. And like you said. You read about St. Paul, and on the surface, you can say, man, what a badass. And he did this. Right. It's like, actually, if you read the end of the letters and you read the book of Acts, I don't think he was as badass as you think he was.
He's not, he's not a member of SEAL Team 6.
You're right. Although he did have to go through.
He did go through
he had to stay in the ocean for 3 days and 3 nights treading water. Yeah. So he did go through buds and he didn't tap out.
No.
But not by choice. Sign me up.
Right.
And that's the beauty of the saints, right? We were talking about that. Our friend Pastor Craig D'Onofrio was talking about in his sermon for the youth conference. Why is he Thomas the Doubter? Why is he Peter? Why is he? It's like, why do they get bad names if they're saints?
Right.
It's like, and that wasn't at the time. No one called Thomas the Doubter at the time. But after the fact, you're like, that's what you're going to be known for the rest of time. You're the doubter, you're the denier. It's who you are. And it's like, to keep them humble, to not allow future generations to say, well, they practically float. They're so holy.
Right.
It's like, actually.
Well, let me tell you another story.
Unless I stick my finger in the hole and wiggle it around, I'm not going to believe that he's back from the dead.
Yeah.
And then Peter shows up and says shalom, and he's like, I'm good. No, I'm fine. I was joking, actually. I was just going to see if you were listening. But then you have Lucy at the river with Aslan, and Aslan's like, go ahead, cross the river. And she's like, no, I'm good. It's like, what changed? I haven't changed, Lucy. Cross the river.
Right. Yep.
And she's like, this is like that scene in Shane where it's like, pick up the gun. It's like, you're going to shoot me. Pick up the gun. Whereas Aslan's like, I haven't changed, Lucy. You've changed.
Yeah.
You've become a woman. You've ruined it all for everyone. And then it is, right? She gets across and then she's like, oh, I'm still afraid of you now, but you're still Aslan.
Yep.
And I think, again, that's such a beautiful image of that threshold moment where you go through puberty and you become a young adult and your faith now is being challenged because all those people that would challenge it were there before, but you were a child and you wouldn't listen. Whereas now you're becoming an adult and now you're listening.
Yeah.
And it's turning you away. And all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, did anyone ever tell you you're a lion? Again, that's like Luther says in his Genesis lectures, I know you're naked, stupid. I made you that way. But who told you were naked? That's what I want to know. We're obsessed with, I'm naked. And he's like, I know, but who told you?
This is not here.
Yeah, exactly. So Gillespie, you're so quiet.
Well, you never give me an opportunity, so
here we go.
I have a long list, but it's
the co-host you gave me. He's the blame.
That's actually been always true.
That's true. That's right. All of my sins are from Riley.
And the delay of my audio.
Oh,
that's the other problem.
Is that why you're fuzzing?
I'm about like 5 seconds behind you.
Nice.
No, it's just like anytime I try to talk, you don't hear me for 10 seconds. So that's with the 3GS, I think. It's just the software. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
I'll have one question.
There we go.
For my list of 10 here. Did you have stories read to you as a child?
Oh, yes.
This is
Yeah,
for Sam.
all the time. Yeah, it was a nightly thing, and daily. Probably not just at bedtime, but yeah, it was a daily, weekly thing. We'd make trips to the library. We'd read by ourselves. We'd read together. We've done that with our own kids too. They read more on their own now than we do out loud together, but that's still, yeah, that was a big part of our growing up, and was definitely a big part of theirs.
Yep.
Yeah.
So yeah, it shows. My mother was a elementary school librarian, so we had the
awesome.
same experience as well. And she
Awesome.
would read to the children in school every day, and yeah. So it's a big priority for us too. But I think it shows in that imagination. It's almost like it gets just kind of shut off if it's not encouraged to grow as a young person. So that's an encouragement to parents, I think, to do this kind of reading. And then you can do it with the Bible too. Just read them Bible stories.
Oh,
I don't
absolutely.
know why that's such a. It seems like a thing that people just forgot, but whether it's a children's Bible or some kind of Bible reader, or just read through the Book of Acts, that would be a fun one with fun stories.
Once upon a time, there was a bald man,
It's not that.
Yeah.
and some children mocked
Yeah.
him for his being bald, and some she-bears
Yeah,
ate
right,
them.
right. If you want to pick out the fun stories, that's
Right,
good too.
exactly.
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
I agree.
Plenty to pick from. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that was my question.
No, you got
good,
10.
my-
I want to
my
hear
word
them.
in.
That was a good question. Your questions are much better than mine. I'm just stream of consciousness.
Well, and sometimes you addressed it. I just didn't get to drop in. Let's we talked about that a little bit. How about what's the, in your understanding, what's the relationship of imagination and faith? Because we talked a lot about the word, and you were, especially in regards to the liturgy, because we
Yeah.
don't see or experience things. We do, but it's layered, right? It's the word that actually gives them their meaning for us, or reveals what they are for us. So how would you describe that?
Yeah. I mean, I think
Imagination and faith.
one of the blessings of the gift of God, the imagination, is that it allows you to. I mean, not see things like okay, I can't literally picture Jesus in front of me, but the imagination allows you to do that a little bit, right? The imagination allows you to say, all right, yeah, when Jesus says, I'm the good shepherd, like I can build that in my mind. I can picture that. Now, does that translate into a writing? Well, sure. For some people it does. Does it mean it translates into a work of art? Or does it just stay in the brain? I mean, wherever it kind of goes, I guess, from there, might depend on what skills or kind of creativities that God given you. But either way, it's there. You can't help but have that image in your head. So I think just the language of the faith helps train the imagination, right? Helps it create it, right? But then in turn, that helps strengthen faith. It works. It flows both ways, right? So that your imagination is a God-given gift or a tool to help picture and see and kind of construct in your, if your mind is a movie theater, right? Or if it's a comic book or whatever, like, all right, your imagination is doing that, right? It's doing the directing and the screenwriting and the acting and everything else. And
this is where I get to say my thing.
and putting
In the early church, the imagination was the path of the Holy Spirit. That's
Yeah,
what they called it.
That is your thing.
I love it.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
beautiful.
Good.
To
That's
Sam's
good.
point.
What's the modern context has a big problem though, because I think when we say imagination, people think imaginary, which they think of as not
Fantasy,
real.
fake, fiction.
right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
fantasy. Well,
Lewis
we had this conversation. Oh, go ahead.
No,
See
go
the
ahead.
delay; it's not working.
Yeah.
Um, Yeah, we had this conversation because we have a day school, and one of the teachers was opposed to things like magic and dragons, and so you can imagine all sorts of books. There we go, that were being excluded. And I'm like, what's wrong with dragons? They're in the Bible, right? To which that was enough of a response to just kind of shut the conversation off. But it also had to do with, just they can't. Well, they don't believe in magic. I mean, that was another one. Or they do believe in magic and they're fearful of it, which isn't helpful either, right? So, like, how can you have this conversation with people I think the entry point is the scripture, and that's where I was kind of driving,
Yeah.
is to say, you know, Saul goes to a necromancer.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Is that not true story? I mean, we say witchcraft is just, you know, imaginary, but don't play with it because it's dangerous.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
well,
It's not.
Right.
okay.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
Sorry, I didn't
no,
give you
no,
give you a
all
chance to
good.
finish.
I think imagination and imaginary maybe it's good to make a distinction, right? People talk about like an imaginary friend. Like, okay, we can talk about those things as not real. When we get into the realm of the imagination itself and God's gift, then we have to, again, I think, make that distinction and say, well, no, these things are real. They're part of the mind. They're part of the gift of the body. Part of the gift of creation, and they never just stay. Well, I mean, they don't always stay in your head, I guess. But even if they do just stay in your head, that's still a real thought, right? It's still a real. You know, if you picture, say, all right, you know, imagine the most beautiful tree, you know, a towering cedar, or you know, a broad oak leafed kind of tree and in full leaf. You know, you're going to picture that in your head, but the image is there. But imagination is a very real thing, and does real things, right? Because often real thing is anything you do. Whether you're a mathematician, right, or a musician, or you're an artist, or you're an architect, or whatever it is, you know, no matter what discipline you find yourself in, or kind of vocation in life, you're going to be using that God-given gift of the imagination most of the time without even really realizing it. But all the better when you do realize that you do have it and you use it. Like, oh, okay, this is a gift of God. This is a tool. So now, what do I do with it? Okay, put it to service in your callings in life. I think it was Lewis that talked about the imagination is the kind of the isthmus, or the connecting point between myth and reality, and so it was the thing that joins it together, which is helpful because then it's like, okay, this isn't just in story kind of Never Land sort of stuff. It's like this is, you know, this helps me not only see reality but kind of interpret it too, right? So it's the organ of meaning was another way he talked about the imagination. Right. So you're creating things, as Tolkien will call it subcreation, right? You're subcreating things because you don't create out of nothing, because we're not God, but we do subcreate things, and you're doing that with the tools of the imagination that God has given you, and it kind of works both ways. Yeah.
One of the things Lewis
I've
talks
avoided
about.
the term.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
I said I was going to avoid the term imagination, or to prompts people to imagine, because of that kind of modern context. But I mean, we will speak declaratively. We'll say like, we worship with saints. I mean, here are saints and angels gathered with you at the altar. Yeah. And that's encouraging in imagination, but it's not telling that, and it's almost commanding it, actually, rather. But I think people still don't necessarily know they have permission to think that way, to actually, or even just to believe it, right? Yeah. They think, well, because it sounds too, I guess, mystical or too magical.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, in The Discarded Image, Lewis addresses this, and I was listening to a medieval scholar yesterday talk about it too, is it's not, so we think that the medieval folk, and even Luther's generation, that it was all vertical. It was all like, how do we escape from earth to get to heaven? Like we gotta get to heaven. It's all about getting to heaven. But the thing that moderns fail because we don't want to see it is that it wasn't, we got to get out of here. It was first the understanding the cosmology of heaven is above us and under our feet at the same time, because wherever Jesus is, wherever the angels are, that's heaven. Behold, you know, repent and believe, the kingdom of heaven is at hand. And so on the one hand, they did look forward to actually ascending and you know, but the thing that the Bible addresses a lot, is very specifically, is God is always coming down to us, not we're going up to him. He's coming down to us. And that God desires to be with his people, be with his people in his creatures in creation that he made, because it's good and it's beautiful and he loves it and he wants to interact with it. Whereas as sinners, we think that the whole point of life is to escape, like get the hell out of here as quickly as possible, you know, get to Mars if you can't get to heaven. Yeah. Versus, no, the medievals were very clear that, you know, after this life, there's the other world waiting. This is Middle Earth, and so we're going to go to, you know, the top of the dome, so to speak. We're leaving, going to seventh heaven. But It was also the understanding, though, that Christ harrows hell on Holy Saturday, and that hell is empty, and Christ is the Lord of hell. He's the Lord of Hades, of Sheol, as well as the Lord of heaven. That's Philippians chapter 2. All in heaven, on earth, and under the earth, all take a knee at the name of Christ. And I think that's the thing that, and I bring it up because, like Sam said, there's imaginary, and then there's imagination. And we don't draw a distinction. And so I can say, well, I have an imaginary friend versus I am overwatched by angels, according to the book of Hebrews.
Yeah.
So one's requires a theological imagination, liturgical imagination, like you said, Gillespie. The other one's imaginary, right?
Yeah.
When I hit 11 or 12 years old, and actually I have the quote from Lewis on stories about this that I kept last week, is I stopped believing in the pirate that went with me everywhere and went on adventures with me, because he's not real, he's make-believe. Versus, no, I am overwatched by angels.
Yeah.
And so if I'm talking to someone and I don't want to talk to them anymore, I just invoke the name of Jesus and say, well, I'm protected by angels, and they'll leave immediately. Because again, you may not have the imagination to see the reality of what's happening, but in faith, I can picture that. I can picture that image. And so when I say there's angels, I'm saying there's something so big that the little evil spirits that are piggybacking off of you don't stand a chance. I have nothing to fear. And I teach that to the children then about spiritual warfare.
Yeah.
It's like, when you're scared at night, just remember, there's an angel bigger than your house protecting you from the boogeyman in your closet. So just say, angel that God has given me, could you just chase off this shadow? And they'll do it. They love you. That's the whole point. But Lewis wrote this. When I was 10, I read fairy tales in secret and would have been ashamed if I had been found doing so. Now that I am 50, I read them openly. When I became a man, I put away childish things, including the fear of childishness and the desire to be very grown up.
Yeah.
That could literally be my mission statement for life right there.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, and Donovan, you said something about memorization with young people. We don't always agree on that topic, but for different reasons. But I did.
I
hear
agree
a
with
quote I thought was really
memorization.
helpful,
I disagree with rote memorization. I think that's wrong. I don't think it's effective.
Right. No, I agree with, and we agree on that point. But the quote that I saw and I thought was really helpful was, is that we bless adults and we teach children. But we should bless children and teach adults.
That's the George MacDonald quote.
So like is it George MacDonald?
No, okay. George. It's one of my favorite new quotes that I learned is, it's George. Why you ask me, where is my God, and I will tell you, He is out kissing children and blessing them, and and telling them they are like God.
Yeah, no, that's right.
So last Sunday, when I went completely off script in my sermon, and I started talking about little Kenna in the second row, and saying, if you don't have faith like little Kenna, you will never see the kingdom of heaven. Now she is balled up in joy to the point that I thought she was going to explode in the pew. She was just like,
because she liked being named.
Oh my God! Right? She was like, wait a minute, everyone in church should be like me. Right? Now again,
that's awesome.
That's cute, but also true. Biblically speaking, that is true.
Yeah,
and so I can make a living parable, a kind of coin out of the fish's mouth, out of little Kenna and little Harlan, who's one, and say, Jesus is like, when they come to the altar and I bless them in the name of God and put the sign of the cross on their head. If I say you are like God, He says it first. But yet the adults are super uncomfortable. They brought it up in Bible class when I named it. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, He literally says, unless you are like this child. The adults are really uncomfortable with me referring to children as God. But I'm like, but I call you children of God every Sunday.
Right.
You're okay with me calling you children of God, but not you're like God? Well, that's too much pressure. That's performance anxiety now, right?
Yeah, right.
You're exposed.
Right. Son of a duck is a duck, though. So
right, exactly.
It's kind of unavoidable.
100%, right? Or you say, well, to men He calls you the bride of Christ, and to women He calls you sons of God. Get used to it, because in Galatians, Paul says in Christ, there's neither male nor female. Now, if you take Christ away from that, you get the ELCA, you get identity politics, because out of you're trying to make that true on earth. And then this beautiful young woman who spoke at the conference who detransitioned, talked all about that. Right. Of I believed I was under this spell, and I started transitioning to becoming a man. And she said the words that came to me when I wanted to commit suicide, the words that literally came to me were, "You're baptized. You don't have to do this." And that literally turned her around, that voice spoke to her and go, "You're baptized. You don't have to do this." And then it was the other direction of going back to being a woman now. And like she said, I had my breast cut off. I had my uterus and my ovaries taken out. I took testosterone. There's no going back from that. I can never recover from that. But I don't need to because I'm baptized. And God says, "You made me a woman." God says you're a virgin because I forgive you. God says you're baptized. And therefore, if I stare at myself in the mirror naked, that's not my identity. I'm baptized. And because of her presentation, I completely changed my presentation because she was blessing me with that gospel. And I'm like, the story that I had that was super awesome to me, God's like, "Nope, you're going to tell a story that ministers to this woman now." And through her, everyone else in this building is going to be ministered to. And you're like, okay, I guess that's where we're going. To me, that's what Lewis is talking about of, now that I'm a grown up, I'm not afraid to say that out loud and just say it. Like, so I said, thanks to Caitlin, my entire presentation is going this way. And I hope most of all, it's a blessing to you for giving me this gift. And now if you don't like it, just tell me you're bored and we'll pivot. But because I'm an adult now, because the Holy Spirit's tenderized my heart, I can say that in the moment and not be afraid of judgment or not be afraid of, well, how are they going to hear it? And then you can show up on Sunday and preach that and go, I'm going to talk about Kenna right now because the Holy Spirit's captured my vision and pointed me at her, and he's trying to teach you something through her. And as you noted then, going back to the McDonald quote, where's Jesus in church on Sunday? He's blessing children, kissing them and saying they're like God. Yeah. And so what's your sermon going to be? That? Because that's got a hold of my imagination.
Well, and that's why the quote I still don't think that I gave wasn't quite right, because we bless, everyone is to be blessed, and the teaching it's subordinate to that. It's not it's not like adults need teaching and children need blessing. No, it's all blood. And actually, I think this is to I'm thinking about using your book, Sam, not with children but with adults. And, and the reason is because nobody read, but they also I feel just. My sense is that people's imaginations are closed off. And they need to be reopened. And Donovan's talked a lot about this with story. And it's actually done that for you personally, right? It's not just that you're using it in ministry, but it's opened up. It's given you a new lease on life in a lot of ways, right?
Well, and to think about blessing in this.
So it's that, I was going to say it's the dragons unaware and trying to get past them.
Right.
So that you can even talk about something hard that you brought up earlier, which was spiritual warfare. And we say that word, and if you call something satanic, they shut off immediately. But like Donovan had said, like if you could say, if you could teach the story of the wolf, or you could teach the story of, I remember the example you used.
Dragon.
I mean, you could use the dragon, or you could use other things.
What's the pattern?
Then you can see the pattern, and you can say, and it all belongs to the liar and the father of lies. But you don't have to quite go there yet, right? They'll be open to that conversation maybe later, now that they recognize the way that the evil one works through all these different agency.
An example that you just brought up, actually, it spurred this in me, is before stuff that happened in the last 3 months, if I treated adults like I treat the children, I would have seen that as condescending. Whereas now I actually, to your point, I actually see it as, why aren't you treating the adults like you treat the children? Which is, give them a hug, look them in the eye, tell them you're like God, say I love you, and because now it's not disingenuous. You're not saying, well, I'm going to say this to make them feel better, but rather I was converted by God to say, hey, it's not condescending to treat the children of God like children, unless you're condescending, and you're not.
They're all children.
Because now it's like, if a child comes up to me in church, I'm like, where's my hug, right? Or, I love you, or Jesus loves you, or you're just like God. Well, I say that to adults and they melt, and you're like, God, I'm so dumb. But it is that the Holy Spirit converting your heart from stone to flesh to say, it's only condescending if you're condescending. And then, sorry, one last thing. And then to your point, Chris, then they're ready to be taught because you've shown them compassion.
It's a difference between being childlike and childish. I think is that with that condensation or condensation. Right. Well, condensation too. Whatever. There's water on the windshield.
Water on the brain.
You get the idea. Yeah. No, that's good. I think we hit up my whole list now. I was even going to talk about subcreation, but you went there, Sam, because I knew you would.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a helpful, it's Tolkien's version of vocation, right? I mean, it's just
Mm-hmm.
God has given us unique gifts, unique abilities, unique skills, all these kinds of things, and and Tolkien was very cognizant of this, that we don't make anything without God's permission, right, or God's blessing, God's
Right.
gift of it. Anything we have, right? It's all gifts in the first place, right? You got the first article kind of thing, but then it goes on from there. It gets Tolkien will even say it gets sanctified and gets hallowed, because it's a holy thing.
Right.
Even though it might be an ordinary thing, but it's the potter uses clay, but that's, yes, it's ordinary, but it's also holy at the same
Right.
time. And okay, well, there's your sacraments right there, right? But also there's the holiness of everyday work, and also the holiness of storytelling. Like, okay,
Right.
yeah, God's given you an imagination, so use it, however He's given it to you,
Right.
and let it go from
Well, and I
there.
think that's the key. That's the key that you're talking about, is that an imagination without being informed, will be imaginary, or even worse, be
Sure.
like the scouring of the Shire or something,
Yeah.
or building,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, yeah.
cutting down all the trees, right? Because it's not informed. But an informed imagination is not going to be imaginary. It's going to be it's going to lead to the truth,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
going to see things as they actually are, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's all where it's grounded, right?
And so a subcreative activity, it needs to be right? It needs to be under the
Yeah.
creator.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that would be the key understanding. That's what I heard from you. Okay, good.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
All right. That was I didn't have 10 things. I only had 6. So I'm marking them all off. Done. Very good.
Anything else you want to talk about? We're coming up on taco time.
It is taco time.
It is. Oh, that's always good.
It's not
Yeah.
Tuesday though.
No. You could have Taco Tuesday on a Friday, though, right?
We do. We have Taco Tuesday every day.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's a good use
It's
of
the
imagination.
universal delivery
We're warding off
mechanism,
the crackle.
for
Yeah.
food.
I have a framer. My treasurer is a framer, and the house they're building right now has an actual Lego room, but they have no children.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I was like, "Oh, this is Lord
Yeah,
Sirius,
but they're
isn't
still
it?"
children. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah,
No.
that's
This
right.
is for the
Yes.
husband. Yes. No. Clearly, he because he asked. He's like, you don't have children. Who's the Lego room for? He's like, "Oh, it's for me."
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. It's in the basement. Yeah.
That's all.
Like
we have a Lego layer at our house here, and majority of that stuff is mine. Yeah.
100%. Like, yeah. Roblox are for the kids. This is all mine. Yeah. Especially nowadays, it's so expensive.
Well,
Oh my goodness.
Oh, okay.
Well, since you said it, I mean, there's been a lot of criticism of people like not growing up, like the perennial child, and I know people are critical of that culturally, especially if they're not like marrying and bearing children of their own, and and there isn't a perpetuation of the human race. I get that criticism, but on the flip side, I think it is this desire for creativity, for story, for to live in other worlds, or at least to imagine them. That isn't. I don't see how that's problematic.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, even women reading the women's literature is terrible, right? But it's, why does the guy have a horse body and a human and now he's in medieval times, and I don't understand, but I see what you're doing there, and it has the whole fake romance kind of thing going on it too. But it is to live, an imaginary, and it's not that you don't like your life, but you're trying. I think people are still trying to find meaning and purpose in it.
Yeah, I think
Even in building the Lego set in your basement, right? I mean, or the Lego town,
Descending
like in
into the
movie.
underworld. Yes.
He's
to build my utopia.
Well, there is that. Right, but he's trying to create something, and he didn't need to. He already had the son, right? And
Yeah.
the daughter, we find out later. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he could live right there with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think
Lot to think about there.
there's a lot of
Okay.
meaning. There's a lot of that search for meaning, right? And I think maybe that difference of childlike versus childish is helpful there.
Yeah.
It's good to go your whole life being childlike. Childish is where the problematic parts of it you mentioned come in there, but but being childlike is good. Having imagination, being filled with wonder. Stopping at Tolkien would always get a bad time from his friends when they would go on hikes and they'd go on their local walks, and he'd spend hours looking at leaves and bugs and
Yes.
flowers.
Yes, right.
Oh, you're slowing us up, Tollers. We got a pub to get to, and like, yeah, but look at this leaf. But there's a
I have an uncle just like that. It's
something
fantastic.
good about that.
Yeah.
That we can, even if we don't go to that extreme, like that's something to learn from there.
I think so. Well, good. Should I play the bump music?
Yeah,
What
do
you
it.
think?
Thank you so very, very much,
Hey.
Sam, for being here.
Gladly.
You're a gift to us today.
Thanks for having me on. It's been a blast.
We will definitely have you back to discuss more things. So start making a list.
Anytime.
There you go. Thank you to everybody at 1517. Once again, thank you to everybody who listens. You're the best. God bless you. And Diagwitch. And we'll talk to you again real soon, barring Jesus' return. Otherwise, we'll see you for lunch. So, peace.
Stop so we give a chance.